At 7 o'clock, I call the meeting to order. Start the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, establish a quorum. Okay, number 4, approval of agenda, change of sequence, removal of items.
So I'm requesting to move XA, the report on middle school tutoring, to 7 under the student representative update, so that we can get the kids home a little bit sooner.
That sounds good. Any motion for that?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with that change.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Okay, so that is moved. And number 7, is there any other changes?
No.
Okay, 5, announcements?
Yeah, can you pull those slides up? Two things. Empty Bowls is tomorrow. Would encourage folks to attend if you're not already planning on it. I believe that I had heard through the grapevine that they had over 600 bowls made this year because they ran out last year, so they need 600 bowls. My first experience with it last year was a wonderful event. Community really appreciates it. It goes to a great cause. So it'll be tomorrow from 4:30 to 6:30 at the elementary school. And we have our 4K open house coming up. That's in April, but April 24th we'll have our 4K open house. We've been promoting this out on the website, sending out things to the community to encourage folks who have 4K eligible kids to come in and meet teachers and tour the facilities.
Okay, celebrations?
Dr. Watson?
After.
After, okay, all right. So after
After 7?
After 7.
Okay, 7, version XA.
Yep, student representative update. Did you want to give a brief update on the blood drive, potentially?
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll turn it over to you.
So I asked Ms. Grossman about the numbers. So we heard that we had 23 people coming, which is actually pretty good. I'm pretty sure they were only expecting 15 or something. I know last year I was a part of it more. This year I kind of had class that I had to attend. But last year, I'm pretty sure they said that a big school would probably get like 25, 30. So I think 23 is pretty good for Pittsville.
Okay. This was a meeting already?
Yes, last week.
Is that community members and students? or is it
So
just
it's open to community members as well as students, but it's mostly just students and people that like schedule appointments to get their blood drawn. I mean, it is open to the public, but we really don't promote it to the public because we have a lot of students that give their blood.
And it was pretty tight, like.
Yeah, there was a lot of time
There was a lot of time
slots.
slots, so.
They had it on a pretty good schedule.
Good. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, so for the other part of the student representative update, we have our Jasmine and Addie are going to share about the treatment program they're working on. So ladies, you can go to the podium.
Okay, so me and Addie have worked to establish a program to help with tutoring in the middle school.
Yeah, so basically it's just weekly tutoring for kids in that middle school area. It really just helps them with their homework and allows for one-on-one support with that.
It also helps not just with homework, but like helping them establish organizational skills like clean lockers, organize binders, just making sure that they can also like keep up with their schoolwork once we're gone.
So some of the benefits of the program is that those struggling students receive help on what they need.
It also allows the tutors to expand their leadership skills and communicating with other people and finding other people's needs. And also like increases the confidence in those students that we're helping.
So some of the goals we have for the future of the tutoring is just to expand the days because we have about an hour after school every Wednesday and that early release time in which we can get quite a bit done, but there is still more time than we would like, just to keep the missing assignments down to a minimum.
We haven't expanded our group of tutors. Right now, we only have like 5, and along with the scheduling conflicts, almost all of our tutors are in sports, so we have to find more people that are available during that time. Or we talked about finding another time during the week to do that, since that early release time is getting filled up for our tutors.
And then lastly, it would just be hopefully expanding the tutor's abilities. Right now, we have a language barrier with one specific student, and it's just really hard communicating with him, so we have tried to find ways to help communicate with him better and help him do better on his work.
And then here's just some pictures and quotes from the kids when we talked to them about it. All the kids so far have actually shown a really positive effects to it. Like, I know at the beginning, a lot of them are very hesitant to come in because of the after-school program. They have the option to like go outside for recess, but honestly, most of them now, they just come straight to the room because they like working with us.
Yeah, coming off of what she said, like there's not really any argument as there was in the first 2 weeks, and both of these quotes are basically just saying that it helps with the missing assignments, and it just helps them get that missing work in both bodies that way. Yeah. Any questions?
Can I elaborate a little bit? So for the board's perspective on this is not an administrative initiative. This the girls came up with this, and usually tutoring you would see out of National Honor Society. They're required to do minutes, but underclassmen aren't in National Honor Society. So essentially, they did this because they wanted to. I encouraged them because once we had the idea, I helped them set up the meetings and things, but they didn't need my help with this. And sometimes I go down there to see how things are going, and it's almost like we don't need you here. We got this. We had set it up to be kids would sign up with tutors that would be based on strength and strength. That wasn't necessary. It turned into something with Mr. Klein's help. There was really more, the girls would be available and then the students would come in as needed from the after school program. And these students, a lot of kids have better things to do once they're after school. These students are doing it for no reason other than they just wanted to. And so we do have needs with bilingual needs and other times that we want to work with kids. We want to expand this program, but to me, it was remarkable that we're able to get this going just based on people's initiatives. So I do have some for you. Were there questions from the board?
This is impressive. This is true leadership, and you both should be very proud of yourself. And please share with the other 3. And yes, our appreciation. Good job and keep up the good work. It's those individuals like you that really kind of set a standard for us. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well said. So here's what I got, girls. So this is called the Panther Pride Award. It's the highest award the district has. This is to both of you and also Maddie and the other tutors who have helped you. The reason you're getting this is for initiating, designing, and carrying out a consistent tutoring program for Pittsville Elementary School peers every Wednesday this school year. With Jasmine's leadership and the service of Maddie, Eddie, and others, this program has helped dozens of young learners do better in school. The selfless service shown by Jasmine and her peers is a great example of the Panther spirit. Brings us so much pride in our community. The dedication, expertise, and general character shown by these students reflects well in each of them, their families, and our school and Pittsville community. Nice job. I can give another practice. You have one too. This is one for both of you. And the pension to go over every day. I think girls. Thank you.
Are you planning to highlight this to the community? I know we have a number of celebrations, but I have to tell you, this one feels different.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put them on the spot, but I think a picture and sharing it in the good old Pittsville Record.
Yeah.
But just sharing that, again, it just feels different.
That's an interesting question. I just got to give a reminder on it. The Pittsville Record is a good idea. We also have been published in the Marshville paper recently. If you haven't seen this, there's an article about the CP program and others that Mrs. Jones and her students are writing. And I bet we could easily, you might even get in that class, Jason. One thing I wanted to point out that actually the board might be interested in is that one reason we have room for this is that our advanced learner program can allow students to test out a freshman English and maybe even sophomore English, one or the other, plus they can get into geometry a year early. So when they get into these classes a year early because they're ready for them, their schedules end up being really hard to make because suddenly they just don't fit. They're like round pegs in square hole. And that creates what we call a good problem, right? And so quite often they end up with online classes that because they're advanced learners, they finish in 6 out of 9 weeks. And so they're taking really excellent classes, but they're just doing them because they're self-motivated students. And this gives us the chance to open up tutoring because now we have excellent learners who are doing advanced learning, but they're getting into it quickly. And so that's the kind of thing that's going to open up during the day tutoring that we want to do during term 4, because a lot of our students are on the track team, and track team starts practice right away on Wednesday, so it's just not an option. But point taken, I can absolutely think about that. And I think it deserves at least social media, which I think is coming up on our agenda.
I took a picture to get on social media.
I just, great work.
For sure.
I just think it's different.
Right.
So appreciate it.
Usually it's a difference.
You know, when you go to look for a job later on in life, and somebody does a little check-in on how you were in school, this is the kind of stuff that really shows, especially at the age bracket where you're at now. Something tells me that this isn't the end of your successes, so just keep moving forward with it.
Thank you. Now we can go, I'm sorry. You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
So there's no individual safety presentation.
Okay. Item 9, consent agenda items, meeting notice certification, minutes, financial status, retirements and resignations, and hirings. Anybody has any questions or motion to accept?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Thanks. Okay, monetary information, is school safety and security assessment.
Yep. Yeah, I was just bringing up the. So, we have, Dan Giles and Chief Doer and myself here tonight to go over, and this has been a few months coming here, we had some other scheduling glitches. One of the things that was requested by the board as far as future agenda items was a school safety overview. That's obviously a hot topic, has been and always will be. So we kind of got together and we made a list of items that I had shared with the board here that we were going to kind of talk to tonight. I do want to remind the board, and I put it in the email, the safety audit itself is not in the board packet, will not be, because there's information that we certainly don't want to talk about in public related to, you know, when they identify certain safety components. Dan's going to talk about some of the stuff that from that audit that we have addressed some things from that, but if somehow a topic comes up that I steer us away from, it's because it's information in that audit that we would not want to discuss publicly here. But other than that, please ask any questions as we go through, and Dan and Jeremy and I are all going to kind of jump in for each of these topics. So Dan, you want me to go with an overview on the audit, like why we had the audit?
Yeah.
Like the process? So part of the, there are requirements through the DOJ, the school safety requirements, you have to do, you know, reports on your drills, other components. Part of that is to have like a comprehensive safety audit. And we had that process done by CISA 10, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
CISA 10 came in last year and they met with a group of stakeholders, Dan, Chief, I, and several other staff members, asked us questions about kind of our processes. They were here for the beginning of the school day, walked around the buildings, and they wanted to see like our transitions, like what does the start of the school day look like? They went around the facilities, they took pictures, they put that pretty comprehensive report together and identified some areas, some that we knew were areas that we wanted to shore up, and some that maybe we were unaware of. And that was a nice starting point for us to identify maybe some gaps in our security that we utilize here. Like one I would talk about, I think it's come up in every district event, is gaps in our security cameras. Like, you know, checking your security cameras to make sure that you have all areas, especially high traffic areas, covered with security cameras. Those were things we were aware of. They were highlighted in the report to the point where we were aware of that. And it's a matter of, we have some of our cameras that are reaching their lifespan, that we're going to have to look at upgrading some security cameras, and the newer technology allows for wider angle type viewpoints and stuff. But those are things that we can do. We can adjust camera angles, those types of things. So the audit was a nice document for us to review, and kind of it reiterated some of the things. Dan has addressed some of the things that were in the audit. Dan, you want to talk about a few of the?
Some of the low hanging fruit with, you know, we had some screens that had some issues, so we took care of those last summer. I think I have one now that the kids have readjusted for me again, so I'll take care of that. And we do have In here, it says something about reflective numbers for law enforcement to see something. And that was something that had changed from when we originally did the numbers on the windows. That was in the last couple of years that came about. So when a law enforcement officer comes through or checks the perimeter, they can flash it at the window and make sure that the window is not broken by seeing that number in the window. So we're gonna adjust those as we go, and we're lucky enough, we have a class that can print them for us, so it saves us a lot of money. He was talking about the cameras. That's something we evaluate that yearly. And as money allows, we try to add or move or do what we can to it.
Yeah, you know, and some of the things identified, like keeping doors locked. Like a problem in every district I've been in is people prop doors open with, you know, they have practices or there's outside events and they prop doors open, which is a major risk. Something I think our students are very good at, and I actually witnessed it last week, is we had a visitor to the building that was coming in the main doors, and the students that were there kind of walked by and apologized, like, can't let you in the building, get a bucket. And I was like, way to go, that's exactly what you're supposed to do, is like training our students and our staff, like, about, you know, they may think it's courteous to open the door for someone, but you don't know who that person is. Another one would be, you know, identifying would be the signage piece. I think that was identified, like proper signage, right? That
Yeah,
wasn't
I
that
think
one
we've
of
been
the
working on that over the years.
it's a process, making sure.
You could have every sign up you think you need.
Yep.
Something's different the next 6 months later.
There was one other one that I thought had been the staff. So we were just talking about this, is that one of the things they know is they walk around, they check staff, and security wise, all staff are supposed to display a badge. You're supposed to have a picture ID on so that students and people can identify you as a school employee. We're probably lukewarm at best on that, and that's a matter of, we just need to, everybody has one of these, and actually your fob is usually, most people attach it, is just consistently enforcing and reminding staff that you need to wear those, your security badge, and it needs to be visible. Like, that's something we're aware of. It's just a matter of consistent enforcement to remind staff that you need to do that. So it was, there were a lot of things we had already identified, but it was also kind of a reminder that, all right, so here's some things we missed and things that we're constantly focusing on to make sure that the building and senior grounds are a safer place.
And went into some more expensive things too that would cost the district money.
The
So
cameras on the buses.
it's all stuff that's on our list. If we can afford to do it, we'll start knocking those off the list. But that's just gonna be a matter of time.
Yep.
I don't know if you had anything that you remember from it.
Biggest thing that I thought it was, there wasn't anything huge, a glaring at risk. It's pretty well covered, civil-wise safety.
And there's a
Are
lot
we
of stuff in place.
interconnected?
Tell me
And
more.
so an emergency happens here, is it a direct, like, is there any direct connection to both the Pittsville Police Department and Wood County Sheriff's Department? And like, or does it take a 911 call?
Well, the walkies, the walkies, you are on our channel, there's a repeater on that. So anything over the walkie-talkies, officers will hear that.
Our portables have the school channel
And
program.
Pittsville and Wood County, or just Pittsville?
I don't know what county.
Yeah.
I think it's just that.
There's a range to it, Julie, so like if an officer within range, like that channel is a channel for,
Oh, I got it. So like even if state trooper was, say, in the city and hearing it, it could come over you.
I think Jerry Binder, like the fire department is on our channel, like all safety personnel in town are on that channel, so that if we go on that channel, they hear our messages, sometimes probably to a nuisance amount where they're not sure how it was.
Sure, okay, great.
But yes, if it were outside of that, we would have in a situation, even with that, someone would dial 911.
Of course, but there's also that
Yep.
interconnected.
And then we did finish also, there was a part here about the digital mapping. We got that done. with
Yep,
the
that is
grant.
completed.
So all law enforcement have digital maps of our buildings now. And where our egresses are, where
which
our
is
ladders are, where everything's at.
Unique in Wood County. We might be the only one.
Well, that was a thing they wanted, is that I believe their goal was to get every school.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happened, but that when they reached out to me, I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. The goal was to get every school in Wood County digitally mapped in.
I think it's every school in the United States that qualified for the grant or something
Yeah.
like that had it done or that paid for it.
All
on
you
their
had to do was
own.
apply for the grant and it was paid for. And that was part of our too, is that we are completely, Deb, correct? We are completely up to date through the reporting, all the boxes you have to check. Like we had to catch up for a little bit as far as getting all these things uploaded, like our digital mapping and our safety plans and stuff. So we're in compliance as of this year as far as bringing all that material up to date, so. Now it's constantly evolving, it's a living document, but it's a good point to be at now where we can just kind of mitigate as we go through this. Any other questions on the audit component? Jeremy, you want to talk about the presentation at the beginning of the school year with staff?
Yep, so at the beginning of the year, I'll go with all the staff, because we've been having a little bit of staff changeover, but thought it was a good reminder to go over how the staff should react to an active threat. To let them know how law enforcement's gonna act to the active threat. And go over the procedures of run, hide, fight.
And we do that during our professional development days in August with staff. And then the next piece would be, Rod, Heather, either you want to talk to the response drills with the students. And I know it's age appropriate in the buildings, a little different.
Sure. We do one option at a time with the constant message of you have to do whatever you need to do at the time to keep you safe. But at the elementary level, we don't do it in a very timely way. We give teachers 10 minutes to do the instruction, to talk, to do the barricade, and then we kind of come through. Officer Brewer usually is there. We just knock on the door, we look for, lights out, quiet voices, and then we give feedback. So it's just a learning opportunity more so than making the kids afraid that there's a drill, and then we just always communicate with parents after that there was a drill.
We do an evacuation drill in the fall, and we're gonna do barricade drills in the spring. So Chief and I evacuate the building in the fall. We did the entire building at once this time. We used to do one grade at a time, so we'd have a captive audience, and we could also use that time to talk about the Speak Up, Speak Out app. So students have a direct way because often when there is some kind of threat to student safety, the students are the first ones to know. And so that app is a very useful way for them to communicate with us. The chief will spend a minute, or our school counselor will explaining that. And we're very careful about making sure students know that there's lots of reasons to evacuate a building. This is not just for a violent intruder, but we could be smelling gas. We could have a fire on a very cold day. We gotta get out. And so it helps us to work on our partnership with the church, because we gotta make sure keys work and that we're communicating with them well. And then make sure all the students know that's a rendezvous point. It's not a straight line, because if there's a danger, if there's a threat between you and it, you can take a roundabout way. We just want to know that you're safe. So we go over that with them very carefully. I think it works, guys. I think you guys all know the plan.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon, coming up in the after student break, we're going to go over the barricade drill. We try very carefully to make sure that this is something that students can apply in any crowded place they go to, movie theaters, shopping malls, any place can be a soft target. Schools try to harden themselves. And so that idea of do you know how to communicate, how to make sure that the law enforcement knows who you are in a situation, how to identify yourselves, and how to make it very hard for somebody to get in this room that doesn't belong here. So that's a PPT lesson that we do, kind of a pride time lesson between first and second block. We take that very seriously. So that's going on.
We are working with the county sheriff's department on doing a more intensive active threat drill. So there'll be more information later, because I just did not know about it.
Is it gonna be similar to the one we had a few years ago?
Yeah, it'll be more like that. It'll be more noise.
Those are actually cool to be through, and on our part to see, how fast one person can get from one side of the building to the other. The sound that you hear is not the sound that you're looking for. It's wild. It's something if you get a chance to come and see, if they let somebody in.
So the speak up, speak out, I'm happy to say that funding was in question for a while, but that has been retained as far as, we've had a number of instances this year where we received tips through speak up, speak out that we've been able to follow up on. And, those two things, and Dr. Watson referenced it, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the proactive part of anything when you're talking about school threats is, have your student body say things if they see a classmate struggling, or if a teacher sees a classmate struggling, to refer to the counseling office or tell someone, so that we can, talk to folks. And that is obviously the most required effort, is to make sure that folks feel like they belong, and that, that they're not invisible, and that people care. I think our kids and staff do a wonderful job of it here. And so I do. And I think that the speak up, speak out it was a matter of people showing genuine care for students that they were reporting these tips because they were worried about students, and we were able to, in a very timely fashion, follow up on these tips. So very happy to see that funding is continuing.
Where's that at going? Who gets that information?
Me,
So I get it.
Does it
principal,
come right to you if they?
Yeah, we get direct, I get a text and an email.
same.
Yeah, so if somebody had a
One of us will
concern,
get it.
if someone had a concern tonight, like, what is the amount of time they were looking at?
It's, once they call it in, they get the information that the dispatch center for the Speak Up, Speak Out is manned 24/7.
Yep.
So once they get it,
They
send it out.
distribute it to you.
Yeah.
And without getting into specifics, one of the situations was in the evening, I believe it was even on a weekend.
Yeah.
And it was referred to the county immediately by Dr. Watson, who then followed up on the tip and stuff. So we get these instant, if one of us doesn't have our phone, it goes to all of us. So someone, I believe the counselors, they get a copy of that as well.
They do, and it feels like it might make more sense for someone who sees one in crisis to call the police or call the sheriff, but actually schools, when it comes to us, we can communicate, we have a lot of information.
Yep.
And so we can help them to find people that need help pretty quickly.
So yeah, whatever time of the day it is, we get the notifications, and depending on the nature of what it is that is shared, if it's time sensitive, we're gonna contact, the necessary parties immediately, whether we're in school or not.
So that process is someone reaches out to speak up, speak out, and they immediately send it to whoever is identified within the district as that contact. So under no circumstances would they actually go to the police department, like, that's not their role. So it is on you to then move it to the police department if that's what's needed.
Well, it goes to the chief.
He gets copied on all of it.
Okay,
We're usually texting each other immediately, like, you get that? Yeah, I get that.
And usually it's typically not, they will ask the student or whoever it is reporting if they can share their information if it's necessary.
Sure.
And otherwise we don't know who the tip came from, or we need to most
Okay.
times.
great.
Jim, you want to talk about the perimeter door checks?
Yep. For the police department, we do door checks, property protections in the city all the time. And I've made a priority that the school gets done once a week at least. So they'll walk the whole property of the school, check every door, and then all the buildings. Yes. I think very rarely have we had a door open.
And they'll let us know if they find one open, they'll make a report to us that when the door was open.
And so I found out the door was locked one time.
Sometimes it could just be keyed open, like it left open accidentally.
Yeah, they'll let me know because one of them's open at school and 'cause I have keys for it, so I'll come down and close it.
Any questions on that? So threat assessments, and I'll let anybody that wants to chime in this, because that's kind of another group effort. If we receive tangible evidence, regarding an individual maybe doing harm to themselves or others, we go through the threat assessment process with that. Rod, do you guys want to kind of talk to what that might look like in a generic sense when we receive a threat?
This is a formalized process of trying to find out if it's a student that's dysregulated and saying things that are irresponsible but not actually intending harm, or if there's a threat. So there's a series of questions. This is guided by the state and access to weapons and things that can be actually alarming versus a student that needs to learn some self-control. So the process is designed to help winnow out. So we're not using undue discipline to handle something that's really a mental health situation, or when we actually have I can show you the forms, how you can identify things that could actually be serious threats, because we've all heard in the news situations that seem to have been swept under the rug and should be taken very, very seriously. So the process is meant to help you to have right sentence stems, to be working with law enforcement, with mental health personnel to make sure that you're taking the right things seriously and getting help because of the need.
Rod, I'm going to ask a question for the board just for reference to it. So when you would get, we hear things all the time, right? Things pop up. How do you make a determination which types of situations would warrant an actual threat assessment?
It's in cooperation with Chief Dewar. And so when he and I talk about it, actual threats are extremely rare. Students that are dysregulated and are saying things that are completely irresponsible are pretty common. That's an adolescent thing. And so he and I can usually quickly determine, he knows the students a lot better than I do, but if students are In crisis and need individual help, or if we need to get more law enforcement personnel, if we haven't faced that, but that's usually how we do it.
We've only had one instance, that was a few years ago, where we actually had to go through the school threat assessment. And it's in phases. Like phase one is like your investigative part of it. Phase two, you could bring parents in and interview the kid and interview the parents. And phase three is like your disposition of it. But it's regulated by the school safety, the DOJ. I think the whole
There's a whole checklist.
Mhm.
whole procedure for you to go right through to determine the threat. And obviously, there's times where you know right away that this is one, and then other times like Dr. Watson said that you can tell it's just a venting issue.
And to be clear, and I think Dr. Watson references, so if it is determined that it doesn't warrant the formal threat assessment, that doesn't mean it's like, okay, go back to class. There are other support measures that through, the counselors and stuff that are put in for the student, or kind of the educating, what he talked about. So that gets to the point where it's a formal, like it's determined it needs to go to the next step.
Yeah, they're also, I give them some counseling and about the seriousness of making statements like that or talking like that, let them know the legal consequences that be too.
So I see this as kind of like a hazardous response team or crisis response team in some sense. So that's why I'm kind of curious on this audit, if any of that was mentioned to the auditor.
I think they have like a definitive way they define that team. And ours is more broad because it's such a small district. We have to do multiple things with one group. And I don't think they took that into assessment when they were doing it. You know, these guys, just to give you some background, CISA 10 is the buildings and grounds of CISA. And they do schools our size up to, I'm from Kenosha, Bradford, for example. You got 1,400 students in there, 1,500 students. And they assess them all the same way. And sometimes one is not good for the other one, So when you go through this, you kind of keep in mind who we are and the size of our district.
Chris, are you referring to in the report where they had mentioned about having this threat assessment team?
I am, and that's why I just wanted to highlight this because, in their eyes, there's an issue with this.
Correct. Yeah,
It appears to me that we have some solutions in place.
Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight that
I would
aspect.
say we have a team. We have
Right.
myself, the building principals, counselors.
I think because they were here for half a day, correct?
No, they were here all day.
Oh, they were here all
They
day.
got here before the bus.
They interviewed us in the
Left at
morning,
3:30.
and I think, Chris, this is a case of one of those things where it slipped through like this report was prepared for us, so it wasn't like they were giving us it, and I think that was something they just missed, that we could have followed up with them. They gave us a report and said, no, we do that, but mainly this was just a tool for us, so once we knew, yep, we do that, but yeah, you're absolutely right, we do it, they've been doing this for prior to the audit, yeah.
I find it hard to believe they can get all this information in one day's time.
Yeah. You would not want to see the price for
That's that's exactly my point.
So school grounds and building security assessment, this is an ongoing process. Like we're constantly reviewing like ways we can be better as far as securing our the facility, talking about gates, closures.
Well, and that's something that plays into us being a small school. We're an open campus.
Yep.
Most of the day, except for when the kids are here. And we have people that are gates are normally open for parking or for whatever other reason. We've evolved from what we originally put those in for.
And we have students transitioning around campus, middle school students, high school students. It's just the nature of, I'd often commented when folks talk about securing a building and they talk, I bring up, if you are going to, unless you're going to have metal detectors and lock your buildings down completely, like, you have sporting events where you have hundreds of people, strangers come into your building. It's like all these other methods, the proactive type approach, and you do what you can to try to secure it. But if you're going to have an open campus, and we have a city road that drives right through our campus here, so we have people on campus walking dogs and whatnot, and we just make a point of if we see something that just doesn't look right, or we have students, we encourage students like say something if there's something just that doesn't look right or doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
We won't judge.
I feel like the students and staff do a good job of that. Like you said, they don't open doors. They see someone who doesn't fit in, they say something.
I've got the same thing where I've walked by a door that somebody's standing by and they're ringing a buzzer and I'm not gonna go open the door for them. I just keep going.
Yes.
And I get a rude look, or how come you didn't open it for me? Well, are you bringing in? This is our process. It's not me being rude, it's just, I'm not gonna open the door to somebody that I don't know.
Maybe some big letters on the door, you can read from a little bit farther or something.
I'll put up any signs you guys, anybody recommends, as long as it's something that's appropriate.
So what questions, broad, narrow questions do you have for any of us here related to any of the items on here or anything that maybe wasn't on the list specifically?
I've got a couple questions. Okay, so first of all, I'd like some input on this idea from whoever wishes to chime in, I guess. But we've got a lot of local schools that have a full-time SRO officer in the school during business hours. And I realize maybe we see, well, as law enforcement, we see even more of, the information provided on these active shooter situations. And what can happen in 30 seconds is very, very devastating. What happens in a minute is worse. We have to be honest with ourselves on what is the true response time that it actually takes law enforcement to get into these buildings if something was to ever happen. We're looking at a high-risk, low-occurrence situation. We hope that nothing ever happens, but every school hopes that. Yet we're seeing it time and time again. Nobody knows. And I know this would require extra money. We spend money on a lot of things. But the idea, just that I would like to throw out there, is if there would be any interest in collaboration with the school and the police department to maybe at some point in time consider, a dedicated SRO officer that can take the safety and security assessment, and this would be that individual's job day in and day out, along with student interactions from time to time. I think there'd be plenty of justification to bring something like that to the school district. Thoughts? Chairman?
Chief, go first.
I will say financially wise, I know cities would be able to cover that. We already, as you probably know, we struggle with staffing as it is. To be able to get another officer, unfortunately, would be a struggle. Not a lot of people are applying. I feel like what we're doing right now, if we hear 9 to 12 hours, has been very beneficial, and it's been a win for both sides, because there's really no very limited cost to the school. If I'm hearing there's an emergency in the city, I'll just leave, and I'll come back. I feel like the need for a full-time SRO in the school isn't really there. If you compare us to like Auburndale, they don't have a police force, they don't have.
They need one more than we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do, the only people that law enforcement that goes there is county,
Right.
but they do some walkthroughs,
Again,
which isn't the
low occurrence situations.
That's SRO program has been great. Like, you can tell the kids are comfortable with law enforcement. They use all the apps that we give them. Just the expense wise, I know you don't want to put money on a safety issue, but to me, it doesn't make sense. Like we really need it. If there'd be a time where we would need it, I can see that, but right now, with the staff doing such a great job, like Mr. Knox said, making the kids feel like they're part of the school community. Like there's very few kids that are left out. Like, if they're left out, it's kind of their own choosing. Otherwise, I feel the school culture, school community is very healthy, positive. So right there, that's a big thing. You're stopping stuff. The kids who do these violence, there's a reason. They don't feel connected to the school. they feel wronged by someone at school. And you don't see that here. And
Well, and I
when
would
you
just-
see a kid start to veer off a little bit, they have plenty of support.
I would just add into what you're saying, Jeremy. I think the thing to weigh out, especially in a small town where it is difficult to get another police officer and there's probably decent turnover in those positions because they're looking for that next opportunity to work for the county or work for. I would ask, is 9 to 12 hours a week of the police chief who's in this community, who's connected to this community and knows the kids, better than 30 hours a week of someone who every 6 months we're gonna have someone new that doesn't have any relationship with the kids? I mean, I think that those are just the realistic options, even if we looked to have a full-time person, of what we would see, because that position's gonna constantly turn over. And I think that the value, just to build on what you just said, I mean, the reason why our kids and our community is most safe when people feel there's a connection and a relationship.
Yeah.
That's where the most safety happens, right? When people feel that they can say something, they're comfortable, all of those things. And you can't minimize that happens because you built a relationship. And so I think the worst thing we could do is create something, like we'd have to really think about how that position wouldn't turn over all the time. Because I think that position turning over all the time would be a higher risk than not having someone physically here all the time. And I think that's the true benefit of what you offer that's amazing, and the safety that comes with it, so.
My first district that I worked in was, the school was smaller than Pittsville because it was an alternative school. And so all the high schools would send students there, and we had an SRO who was not connected the way that Chief Tour is. And she was often seen like arresting students for misbehaving in class. And that did not make anybody more safe. So it's because that person was always there, a lot of classroom management and like school discipline got turned over to that person and there was no connection. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Chris, but like it may not be the position as much as the man that makes a difference.
Well, that means that you've got a good leader in place that will teach somebody his skills.
Well,
It all comes from the top.
so I would chime in and say, Chris, like, I echo what they said about, you gotta have the right person. I said this last year when I presented to city council on the relationship, but I said, I can't think of a person that was better at this than Chief. Like he doesn't deny, and he's a large human, which doesn't hurt too, as far as deterring strangers that come on campus and see someone if it's, but I would tell you this, Chris, if there was like grant funding available and we had the right person, and it was like a matter of where there was no cost, and Jeremy said it, like certainly we wouldn't want to put cost on safety, but if there was grant funding available, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I would ask this, Chief, like so when you're not here during those 9 to 12 hours, like what would you say would be an average response? Like you're in the city limits somewhere or you have someone on duty most of during the school hours during the week, yes?
We have someone on duty during the school hours all the time. If you're on either end of town, like, I'd say under 2 minutes usually. Once that calls in, we're gonna get here under 2 minutes very easily.
And I just want to verify, I'm assuming, just verifying that it's not where you or one of the other officers are in this facility at the same time. I'm guessing you mix that up. It's random, right? They don't know, like, you're here from 7 to 7:30, right? Up to 8 to 9, right?
Yeah, my hours. I see
Very familiar
emails
to
to the.
So you just never know when Jeremy's around.
Yep.
And Chief's around.
Yep.
Well, again, you know how much we appreciate everything that you offer us in your department.
Oh, it's been very helpful, like, with the kids too, like, you're getting ahead of things. That's the biggest thing about having a school resource in there. Let's get to these kids
Yes,
before they get into legal trouble.
get to know who they are.
Yeah.
They get to know who you are.
Well, to add a layer with him coaching 2 sports,
Yep.
that further connects him, where you have that connection. He wears many hats.
Well, I appreciate you guys for that.
Yeah, no, it's good question. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Chief. Dan?
Moving on to information item C, chief data production for the report.
All right, here is our elementary AGR report. So every year, kindergarten through third grade teachers create math and ELA goals. Remember, they do that as a team, as a grade level. The goals can be adjusted throughout the year. And each grade level, or actually each classroom, uses one of the strategies for either one-to-one tutoring, class sizes of 18 to 1, or instructional coaching. So this year, we have second grade using instructional coaching. The rest of the grade levels are using class sizes 18 to 1. And then I highlighted the winter results. If you want to kind of just scroll down through there. If you notice, kindergarten is close to 100%, so they looked at their goals and said, okay, we need to add a more rigorous goal. So they're going to add some sight word reading to their goals for the rest of the year. And then if you scroll down, if you look at first grade reading, this was where we kind of made adjustments, not to change the data, but they had a year goal of reading 120 words. And so winter, you're not going to see the progress. So we kind of broke those down into benchmarks. So January benchmark would be that they're reading 40 words, 80 words, 120. So they're at about 64%. And that's a rigorous goal as far as reading words, as far as building skills. So we kind of made some adjustments to first grade. And then if you scroll down to second grade.
Can I ask a question about the first grade?
Yeah.
Are you still, like, do you still feel that your ultimate May goal of 120 words, you'll see really high percentages of, and it's just about maybe what you projected was gonna hit in January versus kind of that?
Yeah, and we just kind of segmented into the half and half, but I will tell you, first grade team is very adamant that that's a goal they want all their kids to have. So I'm hoping we meet all, that goal, and they're working on those word lists. It's not a surprise this year. It's the words that they want their kids to know and they're working on. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Heather,
it's definitely.
if a grade level were not to meet that goal by the end of the year, can I talk, what does that look like?
We record it and we reflect on it and figure out, did we set a goal that shows the growth we want? Is it right for our AGR report? And so we just have those reflective conversations. And this year, remember, we met as a whole team in the same room to say, these are the kindergarten goals, these are first grade, so they kind of build off of each other, with each grade level being passionate about what's really important, because in first grade, teaching reading, guided reading, those things are very important, so that's why reading those sight words to first grade team is important. So if you look at second grade, just kind of especially this reading grade, this is a second grade reading passage they read. And so when I talk to the second grade team, some of the students who aren't reading at the second grade reading level yet are struggling with this goal. So they are aware of that. They're still making growth in the reading area. They're just not reading the second grade passage yet. So that's why it's right there. So again, that's a reflective conversation of, is that the best way to show growth in that area of literacy. So, and then if you look at the second grade math, there's the one with the subtraction. And again, we have implemented bridges, which is new this year, which the teachers are celebrating a lot of great things. So talking to second grade specifically, they're doing a lot of different strategies to subtract, like using number lines and base 10. So they're not doing just the traditional subtracting yet. So if the students didn't know how to do that yet, that's why you kind of see that right there. So they just haven't built on those skills yet, and they're doing other things than just the traditional subtracting.
Is it possible that the behavior problems in second grade are responsible for the lower grades too, for the lower averages?
Behavior does affect the classroom environment. I would say that that is not the only factor that, that we would see here. Talking to the second grade team, the truth is our first graders coming into second grade were lower, and that showed on our AGR report last year.
I was just gonna say, this is the same cohort that you struggled a little last year, and so, you know.
But certainly when we look at tier one, both academically and behaviorally, tier one type components, we always look at, there are certain things that can distract you more in the environment, not just student behavior, there's many things, but all of that is kind of a comprehensive approach to, to supporting our students.
So that's kind of an overview. And then I believe third grade has an adjustment to, oh yeah, the winter assessment is 6 out of 7 instead of the beginning of fall with 2 to 3. So their goal is a little bit more too in the winter. And the instructional coaching piece for second grade, because their class sizes are not 18 to 1, is, I think I talked a lot about instructional coaching before, where the coach meets with the team, they set the goals, they co-teach together, they look at the data, they reflect on it. So it's an awesome cycle they go through together. So, any other questions?
Yeah, in second grade, how do they co-teach together?
What do you mean?
You said that they get together and co-teach?
So the instructional coach works with the grade level teams. And so like the teacher and the coach, or the grade level team, works together with the coach, and they plan the unit, they look at the unit, and then they coach together. Now I will say that we don't have an instructional coach in that capacity anymore, because that staff member is in a different capacity.
Are these the exact same benchmarks that you used last year, or are you tweaking to kind of get to what? And the reason I ask the question is the beauty of data, right? If you measure the same things, is you can kind of, it can follow, you can compare year to year, are you still kind of, is it ever the intent that this would be kind of a consistent data point, or is it intended that each year it might look a little different depending on who's in?
Yeah, that's a good question. The goals can be very fluid. In general, I would say we have always aligned our goals from AGR to our essential standards, because when we started picking essential standards, the teachers were like, why would we pick different goals, right? So these are very directly related to what the teachers feel are very important. So that does change if, for example, we have 4K kids here all day. So we're gonna look next year and say, probably by the end of 4K, they're gonna know a lot more letters. So this will look different. So it's definitely not, it's definitely more fluid than that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the whole goal is to, decrease that learning gap.
I just have like a general question, I don't know what any of the grades or goals, the kids that really March now, and it's probably likely that some of the kids already are past what they need to know for the year, right, by the goals. What happens with kids like that? Do they go up a grade, or is there something they do, or they just keep reviewing the same stuff?
Yeah, at the primary level especially, they dig a little deeper into the skills. So for example, if they're reading at a higher level, most likely their writing is not quite match. So they're going to do more writing activities to build on those skills. Or it's not just about reading like harder texts, it's doing different activities. Our win time helps with that. So if kids are above, or like they're proficient or above during that win time, there's a group that is working on those goals together.
Yeah, so when we do tier 2 grouping, it's not, I think some people think tier 2 would be like remediation, like catch up, but it's also for those that are advanced, when you do the groupings, that you can focus on the activities for students that maybe have already met that parameter. And that's another component that you can see pop up, is sometimes we see behaviors manifest because students, like, I got this already, I know my alphabet, right? I mean, we had students in 4K that knew their alphabet coming into 4K. So you're constantly trying to focus on what are we doing to push those kids along, but also make sure we're supporting the kids who aren't there yet.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item 11, our discussion action items, PHS course handbook, 24-25 revision.
Ask them to open the screen, I can answer any questions that you have on it. most of the new courses are from the automotive position. And then positions that have opened up, class opened up because of the opportunity that provides. Other than that, they're just tweaking the language, particularly from the new English teacher, looking at how she wants those classes to run. And I support all of her adjustments, and then anything highlighted or anything at all, I can answer any questions on.
Is that position, like, that was granted for sure getting, or we're applying, assuming?
Well, we know a portion of it is, like, we know that tech incentive grant, a portion of it, the rest of the component is still in the works, but so what Dr. Watson just talked about, like right now, we have that as it's effectively a 0.5 position. The expanding it to a full-time position opens up countless opportunities, and of course, not just for the automotive classes, it actually, by offering some extra sections of woods, is gonna open up a building trades class next year and stuff, so the answer is no, Nate, not yet, that's the goal, but with the cost analysis of what would it cost to go from full-time and the expansion of the course handbook for our students, because that's an area that kids they want to take classes in that area. It's very evident when we look at classes that we can't run that have students signed up for. So the goal would be that, but we're not there right now yet. But that is the goal, is to try to solicit maybe some sponsorship and some other grants that would help offset the cost of that position. But we're excited about the courses that extra sections, because it's not just those 4 blocks, it's each term with the number of courses you can add into there, so it's actually.
Yeah, and so that position, having the expertise in automotives would free up our agricultural teacher to use her expertise in agriculture and leadership, which FFA has a lot of interest in leadership, and so that class, we don't have a class in leadership, we used to. So she's able to offer that up, and that's turned out to be remarkably popular. I'm sure people take a class called leadership, they're signing up for it. And then giving her more room to teach the advanced ag classes, and then knowing that there's sometimes, like when Mr. Hadfield's on a prep, the wood shop is not being used, but we put a lot of money into this wing. Having things sit dormant doesn't make a ton of sense when we have students that are banging down the doors to take these classes and then sitting bored and electives they didn't really want. And so I can't even describe you the demand for classes over here. And you'll see that with the SEN class in a little bit. It's a tech class that the kids want to take.
And we would have been limited by the facilities prior, because like Rod just mentioned, is if you don't have the spaces, it doesn't matter. You can have 5 teachers, you're gonna have a place to teach kids.
Yeah.
So we have the spaces, we have the kids who want to take these classes. We have a lot of data on that.
There's
some more with the.
But in general, is there other classes we're not offering then, or are those other classes the kids are now just gonna have less kids?
That, the second one, that's what's gonna happen. And I think, good question, Nate. We don't have more students next year. And so having the same amount of students with different buckets now is gonna mean that there might be some classes that don't fill. And I do have a couple classes from the course handbook as a way of mitigating that, but it remains to be seen. If I have a elective that kids were taking before because it's all they can fit their schedule, and now they're like, I want to go build engines, that would be a good problem to have. And then as far as like, you can see these classes are going to be kind of capital intensive. We're not going to be able to get all the diesel engines and cars and things that we need in the shop down here. We might use the old building sometimes too, but we have ideas for how to get those supplies, and it's going to be the best we can do for a while with donations, and then we're going to build. It's nice thing about getting engines, you can build them, get part, build them again. You know, you can keep that stuff, and so it's going to take a while to get those classes fully funded. But it's we have a plan for Hatfield 9, and we're going to say.
And building partnerships with businesses and with the community, and I would say we let, as a longtime high school principal myself, the student registrations drive your classes that you run on a schedule. You know, you put courses out there and students sign up for the courses, and I think our students have indicated that these are the classes. There's a good chunk of students who want to take these classes, and yes, they were taking other electives, but it would be second or third choice. So we're offering the choices that these kids have shown that they want to take, and if they don't fill, we won't run them. And the nice thing with the flexibility is that those folks, there's some interchangeable classes that we will be able to run courses that fill up in that department.
Other tweaks in here, Mrs. Grossman added an AP option for pre-calc. That she offered that this year, but just putting it in the handbook so students knew it would be offered. It doesn't change the course, it just gives the kids the option to take the test that actually could give you college credit in it. And then changing the confusing wording of advanced algebra to be technical algebra, because that is algebra for students that would not prefer to keep going to school after high school or prefer to go to tech college. But advanced algebra versus algebra 2, it's not clear just by looking at it which one's the four-year college path, which one's the more like usable math path. And so she came up with a better name for that to avoid that confusion, because kids don't like being in the wrong class. And then, yeah, I saw Deb scroll past the study skills class. That's one that we put kids in if they end up really struggling in school. We put them in a guided study hall that would both teach study skills and help them with their homework. And that would definitely be something we'd use if teachers end up with unfilled classes. And I could think of several students who could use a class like this year. And I've seen schools that run a model on this before, and it could be very helpful.
And the addition of theater and drama,
Yeah, so
again, will only happen if we happen to be able to hire
Exactly.
someone who
Yeah.
could offer, but the idea of at least looking to go that direction and have that be an opportunity for students.
there's a gap in the program we offer high school students right now, in that the fine arts are not well represented. And part of it is because of interest, getting the auditorium to fill up with students, getting students to show up for auditions. We do have a drama club, but it's also finding the right person to draw people in. If you've ever been a part of a good theater director, they're just charismatic in that way, and they bring people in that don't have a niche on the baseball diamond or wherever, tool shop, wherever. I put it in the handbook. We used course descriptions from Marshfield. They have a very impressive theater program. We can send kids to Marshfield. We have a partnership with them if that's what it takes. If students have predilection for drama, we don't have a teacher. We have a music position posted, and sometimes that's a skill set people have. They can sing and they can do the theater. And so we're hoping that is available. The numbers right now wouldn't support running it next year based on student interest. It's
But
less than
adding-
10 per.
Correct, but in the future, adding drama, theater design, and
Yeah.
moving forward, does that also offer so everything in music and drama, does that, an expansion of that, offer opportunities to get it out of the skinny and actually be a part of block? Because
No, not out of the skinny, Julie. So what I would like kids to do is take music all year. And so for that, a skinny is perfect. If they take a block all year, that's so much they won't ever take all the classes they need to take.
Okay.
But my dream is when a kid's interested in choir or band, you just doing it for half the year is, in my opinion, is not sufficient. But then what do you do opposite of it? If you don't like art, I don't know who wouldn't like art, but maybe there might be somebody, or if their class fills, which actually happens because we have a total of one art teacher who teaches K through 12. So then the other skinny, it could be a study hall, it could be an online class. Study hall doesn't give you credit, but now we have this one. Or it could be theater, so it gives us another option for those students. But I don't support moving band or choir out of the skinny. And my peers that work with block scheduling, that's like the best way to make the block schedule work for music, is to use the skinny.
I'll just comment that I feel like this area, it is absolutely the dynamic of who teaches and the commitment of what that looks like. And I was blessed to have both an amazing band and choir teacher that stayed their entire career in Pittsville. And I was, so I don't want to minimize how important that is. But an observation is that potentially how we organize classes can create this to be complicated for kids, unless for some reason this is your jam and this is the thing and you prioritize it. But students who just want this to be part of it might struggle a little bit with how we organize things.
Right now, you can stereotype students, unfortunately, and figure out, like, if you are in band classes, you might take the advanced four-year college class. That's very common. You don't often find band students who also want to build engines. You could, but finding running the right classes opposite of it, we don't put AP classes opposite of band because that's a non-starter. You're going to take one and not the other. So in that, I inherited that. The schedule was already in very good shape from what Emily and Cynthia and other people had built. So fair point. But when students don't take these classes, we're very proactive about asking them why. If you took music before and you're not anymore, what changed? We're not hearing that the schedule is the reason.
Good, that's great.
Any questions about that course handbook? I'm happy to answer them.
I'm not seeing astrology in here anymore. Is that
Astrology? Oh, I can make a note.
No, I'm just, maybe they didn't want to do the Big Bang Theory. I'm sorry, so that's,
I don't want you to, yeah, astrology.
No, not anymore.
but it's
You
not
did.
what I say it's not.
Teacher that was
Chris, these guys can do it. Chris, these two guys took it.
Oh, it was wonderful.
It was.
Too bad we don't have this screen.
Too bad what?
We don't have this screen anymore.
Is it like a report?
Is it?
Well, I just had to throw that in there. All right.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? If not, we'll.
Just approve.
Approve the.
I'll make a motion to approve the revisions to the 2024-2025 PHS course handbook as presented by Dr. Wilson.
Second.
A second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Let's get the next two.
Start College Now applications for the fall semester.
Yeah, I'm covering this presentation for Ms. Peterson. Okay, so Start College Now, ECCP, I have the exact enrollment forms for this term. I can show you guys the numbers for other trends. Remember last year, the way we decided to do this was to show you trends and data for how students are doing in these classes and which ones they're showing up for. And then all three of our students that are here today can answer specific questions about this class or like if you're interested. I don't know if you're willing as an audience member just to take questions from the board, but that'll teach you as well. So reminder for anybody who doesn't know, Start College Now and ECCP, these are state programs that are designed to let high school students take college classes while in high school. If they want to take tech college classes, tend to be the SEN classes or the 4-year college ones or the ECCP. District pays for classes, students have to pay for the books and material for ECCP. We pay for the books for SEN. They got to make room in their schedules for it, and then they got to do the work. And so all we do is help them with the enrollment and then pay the tuition for it. These classes have been offered for many years. I have the data in a future slide to show you how they've been going. But the spike in popularity from 2 years ago is really remarkable, and it's still almost unexplained. It seems like once COVID hit, the students wanted to take college classes and they haven't stopped. I'll show you. So the yellow are the Start College Now classes. These are largely mid-state, although we have quite a few students that are taking NTC classes next year. And then the purple are the ECCP classes. And so this spike here was the really remarkable one where we had 15 students take tech classes. And then you can see we usually have a trickle of students that take the ECCP classes. You both have done those, I think. Is that correct?
I have.
Okay, so Brad has, and Brad can tell you what those classes are like. Do you want to describe quickly what it's like to take the ECCP class?
Sure. So I took two classes through Point. I don't remember the second one, but the first one I took was college physics. The second one was it was a gen ed. So
Yeah.
I just had to do the work, get the credit. But college physics definitely taught me that college is taught at a lot faster of a pace. At least that's how my class went. And I definitely know I need to study more. But I mean, my mom always gets on me about that. So, but it was, everything went really well. Everything, like all the work I turned in, all you had to do was take a picture of it, send it to the professor, and he'd edit it and tell you what the answers were, and then put it in the grade book, and that's about all I had to worry about.
Brad, were your lectures live or recorded?
Both. The lecture started at noon, and it would go until about 12:40, and my professor was really good with that. He'd always see the time, and whether or not it was like right on 12:40 or whatever, he'd say, "All right, I've held you guys long enough. Let you guys go." And then if you miss a class, you can just go on. He has it on the Canvas because that's what colleges use.
Yep.
And then you can just press on the recording, watch it, and everything that you need is there.
So, as you can see, we usually have 2 or 3 students at a time doing college classes in the library. The challenge there, of course, is that they are their own class. And so at the school, of course, we have math teachers, we have physics teachers that students can go to and ask for help with their teaching. So finding that, but as you'll see in a slide in a moment, our students do very well in these classes. And then what's different with the SEN classes is that those classes tend to be subject matter that we don't have expertise in the building for. For instance, nursing or vet tech or things that we have people that are related to that. Like we have mental health and wellness class we teach here, and we obviously have an ag department. But that tends to be the niche class in tech colleges where they really rely on their professors that are not in the building for that. So as you can see, the popularity remains strong. The one we're asking the board for approval for are the 11 SEN and the 2 ECCP classes for fall. And if Mrs. Peterson were here, she'd tell you that the penciled in numbers for spring that we bring to at a later date were very strong too. The juniors and seniors are very interested in these classes. And I have in a future slide here, you'll see what kind of classes they want to take. So for spring, as you can see throughout here, intro to psych is pretty popular. I'm gonna come back to that in a little bit. Last spring, we did the diversity studies, college math, anatomy, physiology. Remember, we offer that class at the high school too, but it's a high school level class. This is college level. And then we're starting to see a lot more students want to take nursing assistant as a class. We don't offer anything like that in our school, and we really can't. To offer a nursing class, there's so much equipment that comes with that we've talked to them before, especially at Mid-State, about putting a nursing class together at our school. And considering you look at the numbers, maybe 3 this summer, we don't see any yet for the fall, 4 students in about a year, we could not justify the class, but this is the program that works for them. And that makes sense. You go to where the experts are, where they have all their equipment. And as you see, last year we had the rare occurrence. We had 2 young ladies take a summer PCCP class. We don't have any record of that happening before, and we don't have any request for that this year. And then, if you remember, in January, I sent an email to the board saying that we're going to withdraw from NWEX, that virtual consortium that we're part of costs us about $5,000 a year. Well, withdrawing from that, this is the only class we could have offered, and honestly, nobody ever took it. And so we had it offered, people weren't taking it, it cost us $5,000 plus. Then if the students signed up for it, it would have cost another $250. So this class here would cost the district, I think, about $500. Is that about right?
I can't remember.
I believe you told me before it's about 500. So it's a bet to take that through ECCP is a better investment for the district, and we weren't getting a big draw from that. So classes remain very popular, as you can see. Our commitment to these classes provides opportunities for all students. It doesn't matter what kind of assets your family has. You know, you can take these classes if you want to build a career for yourself and graduate from high school deep onto a path that's going to get you a career. You could do that at Pittsville High School. It's something I'm very proud of. The nursing classes are the most popular out of all of them right now. And that's one reason why I asked Leah to come here tonight to answer a question about why nursing classes are popular and what she wants to get out of it. Can I talk about it a little bit? What did you want to take this summer?
This summer I want to take CNA, that's Certified Nursing Assistant. So there's we obviously can't do that here because we also have to do clinicals. That's the second part of the class. That I would actually have to go to a nursing home, do these clinicals. You can't miss any classes. So with sports during the school year, that would be really difficult. So I'm taking during the summer and just help with the school to pay for that would be really nice. It's about $1,000. So the exams would be just me paying for it. That's about $500. But the tuition and books and stuff, that's the other $500. So
what do you have to do after you graduate next year to continue on that path? What comes next?
I'm going to Chippewa Valley Technical College. So I actually need my CNA for my career, which is ultrasound technician. That's what I want to do. So just having that, you make a lot of money being a CNA. So being able to pay for college, I'm planning on taking 3 college classes next year during my senior year. And just getting all those classes knocked out that I can to eliminate those when I graduate.
There's a couple kinds of seniors in our school. There are those that are just trying to fill the schedule and get through. And that's what we have to push back on the students. So you can get some classes in here. This is not a very thick schedule. And then there's students we got to calm down a little bit. You're taking all the college classes, you're doing all this. Let's still be young too. And so that's a good problem to have. So I want Pittsville High School to be able to provide those opportunities. This program does that. We'll get to the question that Leah is asking in a later part in the meeting. But I do want to find out here, sometimes you want to norm check your school and find out you feel like it's a good school, but are you sure? We have pretty good ACT scores. But when our students take college classes, now they're taking college classes with students from all other schools that are much bigger, maybe better funded, maybe whatever, maybe they get better state report cards, but they don't perform better than our students. We have a 3.7 GPA. Which is even better than their GPAs in our school on average for those students. So that's remarkable. They're doing very well in these classes, and then those grades go on college transcripts. We don't have grades for semester 2 students yet because we're not at the end of even halfway yet, but we've looked at how they're doing. They're all doing very well right now. And the final reflection Ms. Peters wanted me to share is that we may need to bring AP Psych back. This is a niche that Mr. Stewart had. Psych is kind of strange because it's not science and it's not social studies. And so you really have to find somebody that has that background, and the way we divide up those disciplines in college. When they get here, they really got to know that brain science and social science together to be teach at AP level, and when you retire, teach that skill set with them. And so finding room for someone to have that. But if you go back one slide, please. So if you were to add together psych here, and then the psych here, and then down here, if you can get up to 10, you can fill a class. Well, that's 2 semesters, you know, if you get the juniors and seniors together, we might be able to get a class together, and then we can run that in a more cost-effective way. So that's one reflection of this Peter's thing.
Because if it were offered on campus, you might get some additional kids that would take the class if it were offered on campus, potentially.
Maybe, and I think the board is aware of this, I think everybody's aware of this. Students don't always want to take AP for college credit because you're really gambling, you're gonna do well on that test. You take the college class, you just gotta get a grade. You know, the test, you gotta get a 3 or above, and sometimes the schools want 4s, and so the AP psych test is no joke, but Mr. Stewart can teach it. So, sometimes the retired take for schools like this.
And Dr. Watson, if I recollect correctly, 18 credits, students are allowed to utilize this statutorily for up to 18 credits during their, like you can take up to 18 credits utilizing this pathway, which effectively gets you a nice start.
Yeah, and if you combine that with dual credit and
Yeah.
AP, you can end up with your freshman year done before you
Down to
graduate.
college.
It's not even that hard. And, it's hard, but I mean, it's not like it's that complicated.
Yeah.
The schedule that does that. I don't know if I had another slide. Oh, yeah, this is, I'll let you read these. Can you see them, Julie?
No.
Okay.
That's okay.
So this is what the quotes that Marissa gathered today. So Start College Now has covered almost a full semester of my human resources associate's degree. I'm paying for my education myself, so having this financial benefit available is a wise use of my time since my graduation requirements are met. Next one says Start College Now is giving me a head start on the nursing program at MSTC with the benefit of costs being covered. Overall, I've noticed a confidence boost in academics because I'm able to complete college level courses as well. Having this mindset going to college can be very helpful. I don't know if you guys have seen that too, but knowing in high school that you can do well in college, not having that doubt before you get there. I think you've actually said something like that to me at one point, if I remember right. It's pretty helpful. Sounds like something you'd say. And the last one is having the opportunity to take intro to psych as a senior allowed me to try out a college level class to help me be better prepared for next fall. It has impacted the overall cost of my freshman year, having the general ed class covered 3 CCP. Course to improve my overall study skills, study habits, preparing me more for my continuing education.
One question, so like intro to psych as an example, does Midstate provide that also
Yep.
as a class? So my one question, I'm guessing that our cost for a class at Midstate is less than our cost at ECCP.
I never see the bills. I don't know, man.
ECCP.
I wasn't prepared to answer that question, so I
Sorry, we
can't.
can find out.
Sorry, I
I don't
can't
know.
answer that question.
The tuition, the credit hours are different. And I could say with confidence you would pay more for an ECCP class than you would for
Well,
Midstate.
and it's interesting, right? Because as more students are interested, and yet we want to try to be as cost effective as possible so that we can allow students to take as many as they can. A difference today than maybe a few years ago is that Midstate college credits transfer right into the UW system. So it's not like taking intro to psych at Midstate is detrimental versus taking it at a UW system. And if it's captured cost, it could create us an opportunity to just spread the dollars further so that we don't ever have to say no to a student that wants to max out.
Fair point. I know they choose the ECCP option because they like the format, they like the way it, these classes are offered at different times, that they're offered in different ways. Sometimes they're asynchronous, sometimes they're taught like you to be there at that time. And so there could be other factors why they're picking that, but if there is a choice, and if it's an even choice, the more cost effective one makes sense.
And then my second question is, if by some chance, which, it looks like we do very well, but if by some chance a student didn't pass a class, would they pay us back?
Yeah.
Okay,
I've not run into it yet.
that's terrific.
Have you run into any students that are taking these courses in high school and don't continue it?
Yeah.
Through.
You mean, I'm sorry, I didn't
They
interrupt.
decide they don't want to go to college and they get a job somewhere in the summer or something.
I don't think we do a good enough job of tracking student data post-graduation. So we estimate about 12% of our students go into four-year college and somewhere around 20 to 30 are going to Midstate and the rest of them will work or some version of Midstate. But we don't know for sure because we joined a clearinghouse last year to track that data and it just didn't do what it said it was going to do. Yes, people change their minds a lot. And so we've had kids take classes that we funded and then they're like, I don't want to be an accounting anymore. That happened last year. But that's also good information too. Any questions? So what you're approving is the 11 SCN and the 2 ECCP, just as numbers. Mr. Knott and I went over them this morning. But I also can answer any questions you have about that.
You've ever been any students that complain that, well, I'm going to go to college too, but you don't offer courses that are going to benefit me. How do you're never going to make You must look at percentage of interests and kind of take like the top whatever and apply, is that fair to say?
Yeah, so if I understand your question, you're saying a student wants to go to college and our course handbook doesn't have classes that are interesting to them.
Right.
So that would be a good problem to have. If a student came to me with that, because we can do independent studies and RVA classes, almost anything's available there. So now we're like, so you are interested in things, you have a career path, let's talk. But we actually have a pretty diverse course catalog considering how small we are.
And a lot of those courses are utilized for multiple different programs.
Yes, and that's the nice thing about college too, like we can predict what your first 2 years will be like, whether you're pre-med or pre-law, like your classes are gonna be about the same. You're gonna take some humanities classes, intro to psych work for everything. And so knocking that stuff out in high school so you can get those more advanced classes with the actual college professors when you get on campus. Good idea.
Chris, to clarify, were you talking about like our courses or the ones through like Start College Now?
We'll start college now.
So,
It's a deep catalog.
yeah, it's a huge catalog. So if they find something, it's not a matter of we gotta have like 2 kids interested. If a student finds something and it meets our parameters of, they've exhausted the options in the building or we don't have someone applicable, that would be approved.
Okay, so they're, okay.
Yeah, we don't give a list. They have an expansive catalog and it's not, you don't have to have so many people. It's like statutorily, we have to, like, if it meets the parameters, we offer it to the kids and we pay for it.
Understood.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I thought that's what you meant.
So we currently would, you're gonna get to the board policy thing later, and I'm gonna let Leah go because she got school tomorrow. But like the idea of the SEN class in the summer, that's not actually covered in the state program. We can cover ECCP classes in the summer, but these students want to take nursing assistant classes. That's a new thing that districts around us are doing, and I'll talk about that when I get to that point. But that's why I invited her here to answer your questions about why we want to do a class like that in the summer.
I'll make a motion to approve the student applications received 11 for the Start College Now Fall 2024 semester. They're 2 separate.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
And I'll make a motion to approve the student applications received 2 for the Early College Credit Program Fall 2024 semester.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Item D, operational referendum.
Yeah, so the document that I shared with you and that's uploaded in the board packet here, this is a sample timeline. I apologize, there's like a smoky smell.
Yeah.
It's making me.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's why it's
going
dry.
There's
So I
somebody burning by
apologize.
the tennis court.
All right, okay, so that's why I'm coughing.
No birdie permits right now.
So I didn't want to alarm the board. This was a visual for us to kind of look at, see, this is what a potential timeline. All we're looking for from the board tonight is approval for Pam and I to start exploring more details about what that may look like and looking at the fiscal impact. This timeline kind of lays out that we wouldn't be looking at approval of like a potential resolution until June. And we wanted to be able to start the process, exploring the process. So that's all we're looking for tonight. I gave you this visual just so you can kind of see how this would all play out. So you're not approving a referendum or a question. It would be approving, just giving Pam and I permission to continue with this process to present to the board about what a potential referendum question may look like, and explore needs based upon what we've discussed as far as I think we all are aware, the funding shortfalls right now and the challenges we're experiencing in that 92 districts are on the ballot for April here with an operational, and they have projected another 112 for November. So that's almost half of the school districts in the state of Wisconsin are going to referendum in the next 2 election cycles, most of them being operational referendums right now. So all we're looking for from the board is, yes, Pam and Jason, please proceed with bringing more information back to the future board meetings. And I would like to send a communication, my Friday communication out, more or less kind of laying out the funding challenges we're experiencing right now to the families and community The big thing is we want to go slow with this process because we want to allow for community input. We want to allow for questions from the board and from the community. So this would just be for us to continue doing research here and exploring funding options and what that might look like. Pam, do you have anything you want to add?
No.
Okay. Do you have any questions about once again, this was just something this is taken from other documents that they put together for districts. As far as what the timeline may look like.
Can you explain why we are having funding shortfalls throughout the state?
Yeah, and I'll let Pam jump in too, because that's more her wheelhouse, but the long and short of it is the revenues aren't keeping up with inflation and the costs, and part of it, a good part of it is due to, during COVID, they gave money, the ESSER funds, they gave money, but they didn't give any per pupil increases during that time frame. So then when the ESSER monies were gone here, which is at the end of next year, and ours are spent this year, many districts that's the case, that's that fiscal cliff everybody's talking about, is not having received any per pupil increases during that time, because what the state said is, we're gonna give you this money, but it wasn't locked into the per pupil increases. So now that money's gone, and I believe, Pam, it was $3,000 per student, if they just gave the inflationary increases.
Since 2009, there's been no inflationary increase.
Since then.
It's like $3,325 per pupil.
Yeah.
That inside the revenue limit is short.
So basically, we got used to spending more money because we had more money to spend, and we continued on the same path. instead of
Not
come
so
back
much
to
that,
it.
it's just, our costs have stayed very, very flat. What's happening is the funding is decreasing. So, we've kept, like Jason said, for 2 years in the biennium state budget, there was no per pupil increase whatsoever. So we were using ESSER funds to help buy the extra paper towels, the touchless water faucets, just so many more things. And granted, some of those don't need to be replaced, but now they're starting to get end of life and they are going to need to be replaced. But there's no more ESSER funds to do that. And state funding and federal funding has not kept up with inflation, but we still have to pay the 8.5%, the 4.5%, the 4.7% inflation for the last 3 years on our supplies. For our staffing, for our health insurance, for our regular insurance, everything, utilities, just keeps going up, but state funding and federal funding stay flat.
The inflationary cost over the last 4 years is like 19%, and the revenue increase during that same period is like 2.6%. So stuff costs more, but that usually what those per pupil increases do is they allow you to keep up with inflationary costs, and like things just get more expensive. With them not giving that in locked into those dollars were used for stuff that needed to be bought. But typically, if it was a per pupil increase, it would have been locked in. So every year it would have built upon the year before, that the money would have been locked in, but it wasn't, which means you're going back to where you were 4 years ago with the per pupil funding, but inflation has gone up 18.9% in those 4 years.
I definitely understand the inflation part. I just wonder how many of these schools were stable prior to COVID. And then receiving all that money, creating a dependency now and a new platform, a new standard. And now, geez, we're not gonna have that money anymore. Gotta find it somewhere because we've been operating at a different standard here with a certain amount of money available. It can become I guess, how does a school district stay responsible for, knowing that if we're gonna get that kind of money coming in, we better be well prepared once that money ends to go right back to where we were, because that is the truth of what happens.
And that is what that was the state's intent in 2011 when they set up the per pupil limits. But Chris, what you described is absolutely what they wanted, is they wanted you to take it to your local voters to exceed revenue limits. So when they set those revenue limits, and that's another challenge for us, is our per pupil revenue limit is, like, if you compare us to local districts, is lower per pupil. It's whatever we were locked in, and it was for that reason you said, because Pittsville was fiscally responsible, when they locked the revenue limits in, they actually put you at lower limits, which, they thought it was a good idea. Well, the problem is, so when that money comes from the state, when we're at our revenue limits, we can't get more than, if you're at your revenue limits, you can't, that money means nothing as far as being able to utilize it. So that locked us in. And what they said is, well, here's your answer. If you need to exceed revenue limits, you go to referendum. And that's why you see all these districts do it, because that was their intent was, if you need the money, you gotta have local taxpayers vote on exceeding those limits instead of just raising. So valid point you bring up, and I'm gonna tell you, those are conversations we've had, is because it's a matter of, I guess, the data I can't address with other districts, because I guarantee you there were districts that were spending freely prior to COVID, and then they got that money, and it was like a Christmas present, right? Pittsville was not one of those districts, and if you look at like our, historically, the mill rate here, and our taxes are historically have been low and remain low in Pittsville, and I think we're not one of those schools, and I think, you know, talking about like last year, the example we used, we increased our expenditures 0.2%, not 2%,
0.14%.
0.14%, and we had to approve a deficit budget by only increasing it. Those are the challenges we're experiencing. So that's a very valid point. But that was the intent, is you take it to the voters, and it's one of the reasons, like, I would strongly encourage the board that we not look at a reoccurring referendum, that we look at a non-reoccurring referendum, because I feel like you should make the case to your taxpayers that we're not, because the reoccurring referendum, there are districts that got that passed, that's in perpetuity. That money's forever, and the voters don't have a say in that. With a non-reoccurring, you set up it, you know, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year, is the voters get to have a say. If they aren't happy with what the product you're putting out, then they absolutely have a right to say no to that. And if they feel like we are doing a good job, and we make our case that, listen, here's what we're doing, and we're limited with resources, and here's why, and they vote yes, then you're able to use that funds. But no means would that be a given, like, okay, we're getting this in 4 years. I like the idea, you gotta prove yourself. You gotta prove that you're doing what you said you're gonna do, and then you go back to the voters potentially. The other thing I like is, I'm not saying this is gonna happen, Chris, but after 4 years, if they fix the funding formula, then you don't have to go back to the voters. If they fix the way the schools are funded, you know, that if you're going into perpetuity, there's a lot of unknowns that are down the road and stuff. So, and those are all things, they're all good questions to ask, and they're questions we've asked, because we don't take this lightly, having to get to this point. Believe me, we've explored every other option, and, you know, we're drawing into the fund balance, which is what we've been doing to be able to make sure that we're able to do what we're doing right now. And that is going to have its limits, because you draw your fund balance down, and it affects your credit limit, your borrowing power, and those types of components. So all good, very good questions. I don't feel we're one of those districts that was a free spending district, you know, before COVID. And I think what we did is we used ESSER money for the stuff that needed to be done during that time. And then now, unfortunately, that money's gone. And I think we've made some decisions where we've tried to streamline where we can, but the reality is we're a small district that wants to, we want our students to have the opportunities that they have in Marshfield, as much as we can do in this, you know, in a larger district. And to do that, you know, we're trying to be to the point where we identify, well, these are our needs, and we want to continue giving this offering that we think is a pretty top-notch educational offering that we do. But that's a great point, and it's something that we want to have community input on, and we want to be able to make our case to the community about, here's where we're at, this is what we're left with right now. So all we're looking for tonight is, once again, this is not going to, this is the opportunity for Pam and I to bring more information back for the board.
It just says no motion needed, so
Yeah.
it's just an informational to tell us.
Yeah, more or less, we're looking for consent from you, the verbal consent that you were okay with Pam and I. I thought this was under a consensus approval, but is it?
It does say.
It does say, yeah, I thought
It
so.
says no motion needed, so.
Yeah, okay. So verbal consent, just more or less, we're looking for consensus from the board to say, Pam and Jason, you can continue to explore details, because right now, there's a lot of, we need to explore, like, what would this look like what are some of the needs, and bring that information back.
So this is just us saying, go ahead and get.
Keep
information for us.
getting more information
Is
is
it
what we're looking
Is
for.
that just information you're gonna find, or information we have to base?
So we are not planning on, like, there's no, like, we have not spent anything to get this information that we've achieved so far.
I mean, we got like, we had mentioned that we dropped the forecast 5 because they wanted like $9,500, but we did find a different projection software for $1,500.
But that was not just for the
No,
referendum.
not at all.
That was part of our
It's to help us
regular
go
operating.
forward as well as budgeting. We would need it regardless. That
So-
is one thing that's sort of related.
But that would have been, whether we were going to exploring referendum, we
We
would
needed
have
it
purchased,
anyway
we
to
need that
see what we
anyway
were
to
gonna
project
be
our
next year.
budgets. So no, this
Yeah.
isn't authorizing us to
Yeah.
spend any money, it's more or less, we wanted to get approval from the board to, before we start digging into details here, more details to bring back to the board, we just wanted to give verbal consent from the board.
More information, better, more information, like you sharing something in your communications.
Yep. The key word is transparency, Nate, is we want to be transparent with the community about this, and I want to get a communication out that, listen, and I'm going to be very clear that there is no approval to this, it's a matter of this is something we're exploring, here's why, kind of to give them an overview of funding and what brought us here to that point, but we want to be transparent, we want to give opportunities for folks to show up and
Right.
speak.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
I'm
valid.
guessing as you're putting this together and forecasting out 4 years, if that's what you're looking for,
Yes,
just even what we just talked about. So now we have 13 students that are taking classes. That's a teacher not teaching a section. I mean, equivalent to that, right? And that's actually really smart because there won't be, I always say, we have to figure out how to do it and do more and never have more employees, right? Like, because and it's not about not having employees, it's about there won't be people. Like, there's just less workforce in general, right? Like, so it's not about teachers not having jobs, it's that as people retire, there won't be the same number of people to replace positions, period. So leveraging and utilizing things that not only benefit our students, that they don't have to pay for college credits when they go to college, that puts them in such debt that they can't get out of. But also the benefit of how does that 4 years out from now decrease potentially even how much staff capacity we need to have at a time that we won't increase staff capacity. It's hard to find the people. So it's not about putting people at risk and not having jobs. So I would be really interested in seeing as we think about what this looks like there's gonna be expenses that are going up, and then how are there things that we actually truly are projecting a shift in doing things different?
well, and thank you for bringing that point up too, is I would be remiss if I didn't mention too, that a big part of a lot of these operational referendums is, I showed you guys that document from that periodical that our teachers are 43 out of 44 for average teacher salary is one of our
Correct.
strategic plan goals is attract and retrain staff.
Correct.
And that's a big
So-
piece of this, right?
Correct, so it's about how do we get them to be 20 out of 43 and need
Yes.
3 less employees because we're also
That's the efficiency
maximizing the
piece.
efficiency in allowing students to do different things. It's a
Correct.
win-win across the board.
Agreed.
Because the only thing that's for sure is there will be less labor in the future. Whether it's in a school or any other profession, employees just aren't popping up everywhere, right? Like, it's the only known, and so you have to project that, and how cool it is that our students are actually saying, I want you to do that, because I want to do other things that create those opportunities for us to do that.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I think if we can show some of that forward thinking and planning and how we're actually doing that, I don't know that we'll save any money in the next 4 years. It's gonna be saving money the next 4 years, right? But if we start to put some of that out and project that and share that, like, that's something that's a really great thing to share with the community. Look what we're doing, look at how we're thinking ahead and changing who we are, and not only providing things for students that are super beneficial, but also thinking about how does that all shake out.
Well, and that's a challenge for a district with limited resources is that, is getting creative with how are we meeting the needs of our students? Because there's a fine line, like, people often say districts say, well, we want to be the district of choice. Well, sometimes that's going to cost money, right? There's things that are going to cost money, and you have to balance that. Listen, we don't have unlimited funds, but we also want to make sure how are we utilizing our resources to make sure we are giving students in Pittsville those same opportunities that students are going to get elsewhere. So yeah, absolutely, it is a holistic approach to this, and it's a challenge, but I think we're doing a pretty good job as things lay out here, and seeing our students, some of the examples of some of those things that we do to be creative, and we're going to continue to be creative.
Any discussion? So good with getting more information?
I appreciate the transparency, and I think that this is the proper way of moving forward.
Yeah, okay. Very good.
So I will, my weekly communication will kind of be an overview of this for the public and letting them know that there's going to be upcoming board discussions about the potential of this to encourage them to reach out with questions or concerns or comments. Okay?
Okay. Good, we'll move on to item E, private school transportation reimbursement. This is one that's a must, right?
It's a must.
Can you remind me what the monthly payment is?
Yeah.
Once a year.
It's a
Or is it
year.
a once a year?
It's
A
paid
one-time payment.
by semester based on attendance, maximum, it averages between $850 and $900, and it's based on the years before transportation cost of the district per student, cost of transporting one student. So they equate that way.
And there's no other way to calculate that, like that's their
You can pay
only
them $5 a mile.
$5
that
not
would
the
be-
IRS rate?
So we use this rate. So this is the standard rate, it's a DPI form, almost every district does it, so.
The
This
other
is-
option is $5 a mile? Is that
That's what
you're saying?
it was, I haven't honestly looked to see if it's increased or not.
The only reason I ask that is because what you just shared, we will be paying over the IRS. I mean, it's 10.4 miles away. I Googled it to see where, I mean, and again, I'm totally cool paying the IRS 65, 68, whatever mile,
67.
67.5 cents a mile. I just didn't know if that was the option, because in this case, it would actually be cheaper to do it that way, but not if it's $5 a mile.
I'm pretty sure it's still at $5 in statute hasn't changed forever.
Is this per year or per semester?
Per year. I think this year's it's like $890 per year.
And last year, we didn't pay this, they were late, but this year they're on time.
One school. So there's two schools that we have in the district that utilize this, and last year's one of the schools was late. And this one is down from 5 students down to 1.
Just wanted to make sure we didn't have two choices. We do, but they're so.
It's not a better choice.
Absolutely not.
Okay, I will, for a motion. To approve it, and you don't like it?
I'll make the motion to approve the request for private school transportation parent reimbursement for letter received on February 20th, 2024 from Trinity Lutheran School for the school year of 2024-2025 in accordance to Wisconsin statute 121.54.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. MF CISA by contract for 24-25.
Matt, is there anything you want to reference on the contract or board members? If you have specific questions relating to the projections on the contract?
There's obviously the potential of a speech and language pathology through CISA 5. There are also 2 other items that I mentioned, Mrs. Tesh, and I would probably remove. The special education instructional material, I think it's up to $1,500. Yeah, it's handy to have, but we still rent things from CISA at a much lower cost. We've never utilized it to that extent. And then there's another component on there on the line above for $800 for the year. That's another area that I would say for us could be a nice to have, but not a must have.
Can I ask what the school improvement services curriculum and instruction is?
So by paying that, you get access to various things during the course of the school year for like supports related to, I'm not trying to be redundant, curriculum and instruction. So they have special opportunities available where they'll send their CISA trainers into the district, or you can send staff to these professional development opportunities without paying for the opportunities. And I would say that once again, we've talked ad nauseum that we explore like efficiency, like is this worth it? Matt talked about those two. I would say for the utilization that we get out of the school improvement services, that we certainly do utilize enough to make that worth using as far as the resources available in that. But that is something you can choose to be a part of if you want to be a part of the school improvement services. I believe the CISA stuff that we were approved for this year, if we weren't a part of the school improvement services, we would not have been eligible for, we applied for it, and we were one of the schools selected. They picked 5 schools in the CISA that we get repeated professional development opportunities. We're going to one this Thursday on assessment. So like we can take a team of teachers to that, and we were eligible to apply for that because of being part of the school improvement services
So
component.
then it doesn't cost us to send our teachers? 'Cause
Correct.
we paid the 9,800.
You get access to services that you don't pay for by paying this fee. And you have to weigh, are the services you're getting, equitable or in excess to what you're paying? And I would tell you, as of right now, that it would be indicative that we're getting our value out of paying for those school improvement services. If that changes, it's something we can look at saying that, listen, we're not getting bang for our buck out of that.
So staff are taking advantage of the extra opportunities for.
Yeah, we've been, Chris, this year, that one I just referred to, we have 5 different sessions of this based on different instructional practices and components. And then we've had an administrator and then different teams that were more like kind of folks who would, Rob, what was the one we went to 2 weeks ago?
Performance tasks.
Performance tasks. So he took a group of teachers from each building, and Rod went, and they spent the day learning more about how to utilize performance tasks for assessing students. So then we would send another group to all these different sessions. So we had different staff going to each of these sessions that the administration kind of identified these would be good people to send based upon their roles. So we've probably had somewhere between 14 and 18 staff have been able to take advantage of this year to the series, and it's a series. So like those performance tests, there's like 3. Is there 3 of those, Rod?
Yeah, there were 2 of those.
2 of those. The assessment one that I'm going to Thursday with the group staff, there's 3 of those. So there'll be 3 different days you get to go to that, and you don't pay any money to do that.
Would our staff have any opportunity to attend these type of instructions without this additional, it's like we were paid it out of pocket,
You'd have to pay out of pocket.
but they would still have access to this?
Correct. But you pay. Now, this one in particular that I'm referring to, we couldn't have applied for the grant unless we were part of the school improvement services consortium, like that fee. We couldn't have applied to get this, but by applying for it, it wasn't, there's other services that come with that, but this was in addition to, because only 5 schools were selected out of the CISA 18 schools that could attend this. We were one of the 5, but we couldn't apply for it without being a member of the school improvement services. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions?
When it says 3 in quantity for librarian services.
3 days, 24 hours, 24 hours worth of services, of support services for, so when you see like 511 for occupational therapy, Matt, those are hours, correct?
I believe they're units of service,
Units of service. Is that equated to, what is that equated to?
a certain amount of minutes.
Minutes. Because in those we have to meet. So if we have students that are required per their IP that they get speech services, that we have to meet those minutes. So what we do is we project that out, like what are our students, how many minutes, and then that's how we determine, if it's for speech and language or OT, that's how we determine those units, is it's what we need to meet the needs of the students that have been identified as needing those services.
But the library specifically says librarian services.
Yep, that was related to, we have, because of the transition where first of all, we didn't have an LMS, and then we have a new LMS going in that position. We utilize CISA. They have a very experienced veteran LMS person, Sharon Egan, who comes in, and we have 3 days to use her however we see fit to come in and offer additional supports as far as like how to spend our budget for common school funds and those types of things. So it's ongoing support for our LMS because that's such a unique position that has unique requirements in it that we don't, none of the administrators have the skill set to mentor an LMS. So we utilize this will not be an ongoing thing. Like our anticipation, we used it this year for obvious reasons, and then we're anticipating 3 days next year to continue to support in that first year. But this would not be an ongoing expense year after year. This is just during that transition stage to make sure we're getting proper support and knowing that we're doing, that we're doing what needs to be done in the library.
So that's a projected, anticipated 3 days that you're.
We are
expecting.
anticipating using 3 days next year to have Sharon, and that'll be determined, like it could be then she could come in August for a day or 4 hours, like it's for us to determine, but we're anticipating using her for 24 hours next year for support.
And is all of this built on actual usage? So if something happened and she doesn't exist anymore and they only come one day, are we only getting billed one day or are they billing us?
The first quarter's bill is like preschool or before school starts. And then I believe it was last year, or the year before, we had some services where the student then exited our district and they refunded all of that money that we had paid in advance. So they have the contract, they prorate it over the 4 quarters, and then if you've overpaid for services or say someone has OT or PT leaves, those services get refunded if you don't use them all.
And there's also 9, as somebody forgot to mention before,
We
there's
don't get paid ahead of time.
Yeah.
They get paid ahead.
there's 9 days that we get from CISA for being a consortium member every year that we can use for any needs that we have in district. Meaning if we identify, hey, we want to talk about data, they will send a data specialist to us for 2 days. So we get 9 days that we can have a CISA person come into the district to utilize for various resources. Whatever we choose would be something we would need.
Another piece like OT, as an example, this is a projection based on our current needs.
That is accurate.
Obviously, we've also approved this, so this is kind of a maximum cap. But if 2 students left the district that needed it and we
would get that
didn't,
money back.
they're actually billing, again, I get that they're pre-billing, but
Yes.
they're actually billing us for actual units provided.
By the
So
time
if
the
we
year's
run
out.
out because someone comes into the
Or
district,
vice versa.
we
correct?
would need to
If we all of a sudden
amend
qualify.
this to be, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
And it's quarterly, so it does give us a little wiggle room other than paying the entire thing up front. It's done quarterly, so you're able to kind of adjust and it smooths it out a little bit. Yeah, good question.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024-25 CISA 5 contract as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item G, social media contract.
Yeah, so I am recommending that we renew our contract with social media for schools. So Melissa kind of handles all of our Facebook, our social media footprint. I think she does an outstanding job. We get the, as you can see by those quarterly reports that I share with the board, for a school our size, we're usually in the top 5 in the state for their folks as far as traffic and usage, and it's a great way to promote our district and all the great things going on. We have a ton of followers. We've increased it significantly, and we were able to get feedback specifically to us on what posts get the most likes and shares. Typically it's student activities that staff are sharing and stuff. So we're recommending that we continue with our social media for schools.
This is a 3-year agreement.
3-year agreement.
So 2 questions.
Yes.
One, what did we pay for the last one? So is 9,500 an increase or has it been staying constant?
I can't answer that because I wasn't here for the last.
I wasn't prepared for that question. I want to say it was between 8,000 and 8,500 per year. I think it was 8,500 per year, the last 3 years.
We can find that out.
And have we asked if they would do a year, like, is 3 years our only option?
No, 1 year, we can go 1
We
year.
can do
or
1
3
year, but the price is more.
The price will go up for a 1 year.
It's $1,000 savings.
Yeah, and our thought was, honestly, we've had no reason to be dissatisfied with their services, and I don't know how long Pittsville's had it. Like,
Well, this would be, I believe, the 3rd contract. Is that
Yeah.
right?
so there would be no, I have not, determined any reason that we're not happy with what, I mean, Melissa's very responsive and as far as promoting your schools,
Yeah, it's not, in my mind, it's not a happiness. I think we absolutely want to go with them if we're consulting it out. My question is it the only way we could do it? Is this a class that could be offered where students actually, like, is there a way we could use this for actual learning? What would it look like to have, an intern help with? Again, if you're pinching pennies, we need this, no doubt about it, but you know, it's 10 grand and it's not, so that's my only reason of asking. We absolutely need this now, we don't have a solution. It's just locking into 3 years means we can't be creative for 3 years.
You can break the contract by paying $1,000 early. I'm 99% sure I read that in the contract.
Then it's only
Liquidate
paid
it.
to the end of the year.
If you break the contract, the school will additional prorated, yeah, my bad. So yes, Julie, but, I mean, to us, the thought of saving the $1,000 a year is $1,000 a year. I mean, if the board would prefer, we can absolutely do a 1-year contract. We could go back and the board can approve this just as a 1 year, with the 1 year instead of 3 year.
That'll end up with next year's increase plus $1,000 and
I agree. I feel like maybe finding a way to do this, and it might take more than a year. It might take a whole new class or something.
But I really like that idea, Julie.
Again, I think we're gonna be forced to look at a lot of things creatively, and this is just, and I will also just be honest, any business that brings me a contract and wants me, my first question is, nope, I just wanna sign a 1 year, and then they say, well, then there's the, well, then I'm not interested, I don't want the penalty. Like, I would just wonder, like, how many, like, just some pushback in regards to, like, what might offer. But again, you're right, Nate, it probably would take us 3 years anyways. And you're also correct. Then you run the risk of a 1 year, this is our new rate next year. Again, we also can say we're not interested in the new rate, and we want the old rate.
This is something to keep in mind for future reference. You know, there's all kinds of different programs.
I can just say that I was here prior to this starting, and teachers and principals were responsible to do all the posts, and it was before we had this company, we were like, we're fine, it's fine. And once we were able to just send a quick description of what was going on in a picture, and she made it, you know, look nice and attractive, and then the timing of when things are posted, I couldn't imagine going back. So I am so appreciative of this, knowing that we want to get the stories out there, but we don't have the time to do that. So it's really.
We haven't had any issues, like any lag time, any failure
Oh,
to
she was
respond.
unbelievable. No, she's like, you post something, she gets.
All I've heard is
There's times
continuously.
where she'll message us and say, hey, we need some more pictures, we need some more stories, but that hasn't happened for a really long time.
And
So
they do.
everybody is.
The only reason, or excuse me, Chris, the only reason it wouldn't go up right away is they have an algorithm that they run. Like, this is part of what they do, is they know the premium times to post stuff where it'll get the most traffic. So you may send her something at like 11 o'clock at night, and she would respond to me and say, hey, I'm gonna post this at 6 a.m. tomorrow, because that's when everybody's waking up and they're gonna log on to their Facebook account. You're gonna get a lot of hits and shares at that point. Like, they break this down into like, so if it's not immediate, she's got it set up because she times things so that she gets things released at the right times to get the most traffic. There's a science to it, and she's Melissa's, and she cleans stuff up. Like, we'll send her a picture and a blurb, and she'll put all the fancy graphics on it that makes it look, you know, really nice on it. And she'll kind of wordsmith it up and use fancy fonts, and she pops that stuff out. I've had 0 complaints in my 2 years here with like getting stuff posted when we send stuff. If anything, it's like Heather said, she'll be kind of like, hey, tell teachers to send more stuff to me. I want to get more stuff out there. So is you know, getting the staff to take those, because those pictures of students doing things in the classroom, those by far get the most hits of anything and most shares, is when we have pictures of our kids, you know, engaging in classroom type of activities and stuff. So
She also monitors comments and things.
Yes.
Throughout the day that
we don't really have to deal with that, but she would, just in case there were ever any inappropriate comments, or she monitors for like personally identifiable information and stuff that may pop up. And so
I think she does a good job, especially the way that she brings these pictures into place, and it's things like, if maybe some students could do that in the future. But that's her profession, that's what she takes pride in, and I think that it shows. So.
You get to track that the students do many of the posts at the high school with, as part of their senior capstone, and so they're sending products to her for the senior spotlights that she's posting for them.
That makes sense.
even if we could get students to do this, They're gonna graduate and you have to train them.
And you have oversight with students doing this.
We have oversight here.
It'd have to be a class. I mean, it would have to be
Yes,
something.
yes.
I think from a cyber incident security issue, we know that they're insured, they are, responsive or responsible, and not that students wouldn't be, but I think the higher, if you're looking at a risk assessment, there's higher risk if students are doing it
Right.
Because they may
versus
post, yeah.
hiring it out as a
Yeah.
service that's bonded and insured.
And she's able to, she knows a lot of the laws and regulations.
Correct.
And the ins and outs, I guess.
And they
Yeah, that's a
are,
very good point.
they are bonded and insured
Yes.
We require insurance,
We require
yes.
that.
and
Yes.
bonded.
They had been when we first started, I guess, I just assume it's still, I would have to go back and look at their insurance
But
document.
we just had a
Verify.
conversation on that related to our cybersecurity training.
Right, and,
Where we reached
Yes.
out to them and say, hey, are you storing for like open records, like, because we have to store that information can't be, yes, they cache that so that it's stored and stuff, so we just actually asked them some questions about how to make sure our
and
information is
PII
secure.
and how they protect that, and, if there's
They
a
have a very
senior out
detailed
there with
response.
all their information, well, they've given permission for it all to be out there. She's not just putting where they work and their age and all of that out there, they've already okayed that.
I'm gonna make the motion to approve the social schools for EDC social media 3-year contract for school year 2024 to 2025 and 2025, 2026, along with 2026 to 2027.
I will second that motion, pay this contract for the next 7 years.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. On to the policies.
So H through Q are all updates based upon WASB recommendations, updates to the policies. So if you have any specific questions, R, Rod is going to talk to, which is what was referenced earlier.
Okay, do you want to go through one by one, or does anybody have specific questions? You want to go over?
I went through them, I don't have any questions.
I just had one. Trying to find it.
A lot of these were also WASB recommendations.
Yeah, were there any that were not WASB recommendations? Yeah, I think everything we see in yellow was just recommended by WASB as updates to the policies where we had gaps or clarifying language related to board operations. Julie, do you know which one?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so we're approving, and it's something we haven't been able to do in the past, to my understanding, but with approving, let me find the policy number that I've got up here. Let's see. Oh, 164, approving policy 164, it gives board members the option to actually not get paid. Is that correct?
Yes.
We have that option, right? Because
No,
we approve ourselves.
No, I think you
You
have to
voted
take
at
it.
the annual meeting to get paid.
Yeah,
So you would have to modify that
At
then.
the annual meeting, you have to vote to not be paid.
you could, but an individual could
Yeah, this
also use it now to take a salary individually, but before you wouldn't have been able to do that. They wanted you to have to all refuse to take a salary. Does that make sense or no?
So what is this saying? Is this is individualized, or this is in general, everybody? This
So the
policy?
exhibit, the 164 exhibit would be a notification for a refusal of an individual board member to not take their salary.
And
As a board, you could vote to not take a salary
Correct.
at the annual meeting, but this would be an individual board member, and Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, would be able to refuse,
Yeah,
to decline taking the salary.
just as an individual, if you say, I don't want to get paid,
Correct.
then you would have to fill out this form
Prior to that,
Nice.
there was no option
And
to
then you
do
wouldn't
that.
get paid.
Okay,
You could have taken your salary and then you could,
and get taxed on it and get it
yes,
back.
this gives you the
But
option
this
to
gives
now
you the
not
option
take
to not
it.
have to take it.
That is accurate.
Okay,
Good question.
so I just
I
wanted
hope
to,
that makes
it
sense, what I
does,
said.
yes. I just wanted to clarify that that's what this actually is because I've been told you can't, which of course prior to this you couldn't, but
No,
just
you
making
can't.
sure that this is what this means. Yes?
Any
Okay.
other questions?
I have one question about
Yep.
the support services, 763 rule.
Hold on, let me find it here. Just a little cut your queue.
It was
Yep.
both, it was both student and meal accounts. So if a student has an account that goes negative, we don't give them food? Or is this a change?
Well, I can tell you right now, we do
Only
not
what's in-
refuse.
Yeah.
I need to look at the specific reference you're talking about, we do not refuse students like food.
Because what
I'm
this
looking
says
here.
is if
Yeah, I
they,
read that too.
because if they do not pay in 5 working days, a student will no longer be able to participate in breakfast and lunch program.
Yeah, what does that mean exactly?
I want to make sure that, you know,
And
according
that
to-
actually was not changed,
Right.
we didn't change.
So I've never really noticed this.
Well, I've never noticed, nor would we ever
We-
on Bear Watch refuse
After
food for.
Right,
COVID,
that was
after
my
COVID,
impression.
we stopped following that.
So the question is,
In
does this need to be
reality,
changed?
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's in
Well,
763.
let's put it this way
He
though.
just got this. Yeah, got it.
Actually, I mean, if it's, I guess,
In the blue.
that's just that could be just our practice. If we actually,
I mean, you want, like, so it's your policy, you want to follow your
So
policy.
would,
Does
So I'm gonna
it
ask
say
a
may
question.
or does it say will?
it says will no longer be able to
Doesn't say
participate.
I
Sure.
can't.
That's a good catch, because I'm gonna tell you right now, we are not
I think we're
refusing our kids, so would it make sense? Could we add may no longer be able to participate?
I
Could it be
think
something
what
that
it
simple?
means is that you're not gonna be able to charge to your account anymore,
Okay,
meaning program, but you still. get
because we have
some
meals
There's
for
a lot of
students.
people that still bring the money in that day, and if
Yeah.
someone brings money that day, they eat.
Well, let's parse this out though, because I get what they're saying, and I too would agree, like, so
Well, I don't
why
know.
couldn't we change it to may no longer? Would there be any problem with that? There's no statutory
I mean, it
language
doesn't
that would
really
say
say that
that.
we're not gonna give them.
it would be more clear.
It kind of
Give them food.
Yeah, but also could read this like we're not gonna keep sending you reminders. We're not gonna stop.
Oh, and we do keep sending reminders, but I do agree it should probably change to may because we're not following policy
Yeah.
that says will.
I would feel very
Policy
comfortable
right now.
changing that language to may,
We're
because
not
that
following-
answers the question, because then because we're not refusing meals
That's
for kids there.
discretionary. and
Yes.
make the right-
We can have Matt take a look at it too.
So do
This
we
is
want
just
to,
first reading.
this is first reading, so we'll make those changes for second reading then. And any other references to that, it's a good catch, but I did not, I was focused on the yellow and I wasn't even aware of that.
Did anybody else have anything for, H through Q?
Okay, Rod, would you like to kind of clarify
Sure.
on R, please?
Do we have wording for it?
What's that?
Do we have wording presented for the board for this new policy?
Yep,
for
I
our-
was pulling it up.
Okay.
Did you want to see the motion?
Yeah, yeah, well, I haven't seen that yet. So the idea for the board's background here is that this is not a common request. Maybe it would be if it was policy, but we haven't actually had students ask about this in my time in the school. But we had some students who asked very respectfully if they could take the nursing class at Mid-State this summer. And without closely examining policy, I said, sure, but then we looked at it like, and Pam squared me in this too, we couldn't pay for it because the state program doesn't provide that school districts should pay for Start College Now class in the summer. So right now, ECCP classes are paid for in the summer, Start College Now are not. So we are already like almost biased towards four-year colleges in the summer, as if there aren't a lot of robust summer school programs for the tech colleges too. And they actually have a really strong case, because if they can't take them during the summer, these three girls, for instance, if they take them during the school year, which all of them will, or they'll take them in the summer at their own expense, then they're gonna lose other opportunities, because the way these classes are scheduled, they will not be able to do sports, they will not be able to work as much, because these classes happen outside of school hours and make very long days for the girls. This is a great opportunity. The nursing assistant is the one that's most needed. There's also automotive classes that kids could take in the future. Nobody's requested those at this time. But when they presented this, and when Pam and I started talking about it, I made some phone calls to both Mid-State and to other high schools to find out what is common practice. And what I found is that you just need a policy in place to make sure that you can do this, and then you just get a third-party agreement with Mid-State to do it, where the district would pay for the tuition and the books. For nursing, there's a lot of other expenses, but those are persistent costs that, like, for the scrubs and the things that they buy that they would use for many classes. I'm not proposing that we pay for that equipment. I'm proposing for the tuition hours between their junior and senior year, and for their for the books for these classes, that the district pay for that, to be equitable between the four-year college and the two-year college, because we don't pick favorites as far as what we want the kids to be able to do, and to provide that opportunity for students. Districts like us, like especially Adams Friendship, which I'm sure we want to be on the same path as they, and it's a very good district. They already do this, and they've seen a lot of success on this.
And Rod, to clarify, the agreement, what it does is our students then get the discounted rates that we would get regularly. Otherwise, if they were paying for it on their own, they're actually going to pay more per credit during the summer.
I haven't been able to prove that, Jason. I've been asking Mid-State that disagrees in the way that I've been phrasing that, because they're saying that the start cost now is not discounted, which is okay. What I've heard. So I looked into that too.
Okay.
They're saying the cost is not necessarily different. It's just a matter of putting the district's weight behind this and getting the girls in that path.
When Rod brought this, I fully support this for the reasons you mentioned. Is the majority of our kids are taking these types of classes, and it's discriminating against kids attending a two-year pathway. The opportunity is there for kids going to a four-year college, taking those the early college credit classes, but not here. And this levels the playing field for kids. And Rod said it opens up more opportunities during the school year. It does. Now, it might be additional classes, but it could be classes in our building that they end up taking. And once again, that you have the component of many of these students are participating in co-extracurricular activities. It just makes sense to do it.
It may feel like you're dropping the bucket because we're with three girls, and my guess, I don't know for sure, but guess is we come with two students a year, somewhere around there. That's about, like, we had two students last year for CCP. But what a world of difference for those kids. I mean, I know it's a small percentage of our students, but it is a major difference maker for the path that their senior year goes on after that.
And we're paying for the other one now just because we're supposed to.
Because the statute says we have to.
The statute says we have to.
Yeah, and
so we can't.
So then we would be doing this one, the statute says we can't.
For Star College now, it says we can't, so we were creating this, so it's basically an equivalent, but it's not the Star College now statute program.
You don't have to follow the statute. We don't have to do this. We're doing this because it's what's best for our kids.
We didn't do the other one either.
No, we do.
We do.
We're required to offer that. If students want to take that, we're required to by statute to do that. That's what we're saying is it really makes very little sense. That they're saying
we're required not to do this.
Well, under the statutory language, we could say, oops, sorry, the statute says we can't do this or don't have to do this. By doing this agreement with Mid-State, totally legal. What we're doing is totally legal. Entering into a contract with Mid-State is giving access to our students. We don't have to do it. It's not illegal that we're doing it. We found a way to do it legally to offer this to our students because we felt it was.
Well, it doesn't say SEN. You won't see SEN in here because this is not Start College Now. It's the equivalent, but the Start College Now program doesn't have a summer component. So what this would do is we roll these numbers up for any students who want to take this. When we come to board approval for the fall, we bring them in with the summer numbers.
It would still be subject to approval from Dr. Watson and myself. Like they would still have to go through the process for us to determine it, but it gives them that avenue to do this.
So a couple questions. The first one I have is that ECCP, whatever. I felt like I heard earlier that they actually pay for their own books.
Yes, they do.
So my suggestion, because that's the one that is allowed through statute that people can take in the summer, that we match up our policy to equal that, which would mean we don't pay books,
But we
but
do
we pay
pay,
tuition.
but we do pay for books for SEN.
I know, but we're not required to do SEN during the summer, so we're trying to match up
I see what you're
fairness of
saying.
what's allowed during the summer, is my 2 cents. Because one isn't allowed, what we're saying is we're not going to favor one over the other.
Mhm.
And one is allowed during the summer and one isn't. So we're gonna allow both in the summer, but we're gonna
Keep it
keep
consistent
them
is what you're
consistent,
proposing.
which again means, we pay for what is required and allow both, would be my suggestion.
Are books for these different kinds of courses substantially different in cost?
No, they tend to be consumable for nursing, but they're substantial in cost. They're about $100 a book right now.
And my thought would be, I'm just throwing this out there, and it may sound completely stupid. If we have kids taking this each summer, is that I would assume, just like when we purchase the book, is we could have a book depository where kids could leave the books and our future kids could
They're
potentially.
consumable.
They're like workbooks, though.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
nursing.
all
For
consumable.
for
Really?
CNA
You know,
classes.
you can guess why they do that.
Well, for the reason I just said is because they're thinking some knucklehead superintendent's gonna think they can steal money from the Mid-State Technical College. All right, and now there's a record of it. Sorry, Mid-State. So, that was the thought.
They're already one up on.
I mean, the other, and is this pretty much the only class that we're talking about, or? could we-
Well, this policy we're presenting is to take mid-state courses. The current contingent of girls wants to take nursing assistant, which will always be the most popular.
Yeah.
But we do anticipate, they have a pretty robust fire department, or firefighting program there. And sometimes those classes are really hard for kids to take during the school year for the same reason. And it's not like we can do a firefighting class here.
Correct.
So I would anticipate we'd start to see some kids doing that in summer too.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the other comment I'm going to make, I'm not saying it works for students, and I want students to be able to do this, it's on their path towards nursing, but there are other ways to get your CNA for free by being employed by a whole slew of businesses that actually will put you through that and pay for it for free. But then you're also committing to working, of which I understand that doesn't fit into every one of our students to be able to stay doing that, but it is other options that exist if you want. So that would be my suggestion, is that we would match up the 2 summer programs.
Rod, to clarify, if these students, I'm just thinking out loud here, if they earn these CNA certificates, that's a portion of the tech incentive grant money where the school district gets money back for certificates.
Yeah.
I'm 99% sure CNA.
You're right.
So this opens up an additional pathway where actually the district would, if kids are earning their certificates, you get it the following year, but we would get, money back that would, like, we currently get about $16,800 a year from students earning certificates. This would expand those opportunities. I can't say how many, but it's certainly gonna open up the pathway where we could actually see some money coming back through that grant if these kids are earning those certificates. Just throwing that out there. That's a good point. So what I'm hearing is that what I'm hearing from the board? The consensus is you would like to keep the language consistent with the.
That's just what Julie said, so.
Yeah.
I heard it.
Julie's right.
Comment on the.
I would tend to agree. I
We want
mean,
to keep it consistent with what the other group gets.
Yeah.
It's not right
yeah.
to have two differences.
Because we could have
I think
people
it's
coming back.
excellent.
And they're saying, well, why are you getting
And then the
Oh, yeah.
ACCP states, tuition and required fees.
Yeah, we're not asking for fees, right, on this.
I don't think so, so that's a difference too. So one would pay fees and so then the other one would pay fees.
Well, so I'm hearing from the board, maybe we just mirror that language though, then.
Yeah, so the.
And keep it consistent. You've done more research on this than I have, Rod. What are your thoughts
Or
on
add
I would-
books to the other one.
I defer to the board, this is a board decision. From the reason I put the books in there is to stay consistent for SEN, so when kids say, I want to take SEN classes, we don't say, well, I'm taking summer, you gotta pay for books, you get school year, you don't.
I'm gonna make a proposal then as the district administrator, and you can shoot me down. Is there any reason we couldn't say, when we're talking about a handful of students potentially, and we're talking about books that we couldn't just add the language to the other component? Are we able to do that to cover books for the other?
No,
You're not.
Because it's under that
statute.
program.
Okay.
it's not in statute.
All right, so then, I agree, I tend to agree with you is that if we need to make it out, because otherwise we'd have other folks coming back that are on the other side saying, why are we paying for books for, for start college now? I mean, I get it. What are the fees?
Give them both the same advantage.
Well, fees can vary, I mean, it all depends what course they're in, some of
They
the
have-
fees can be hundreds of dollars.
They got background fees, like if they're gonna work with patients, they gotta do their background checks, that tends to be like $40.
I think fees are gonna cost you more than books, actually.
And the difference, in my mind, is when you take it during the school year, it is taking time away from us having to provide an instructor for something opposite that, right? So just and when you're taking it in the summer, it is truly just an add-on of something else which again, I want what's best for our students, so don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to also think about how, is there a way to meet in the middle to do it, but also, there's no cost shifting at all when we offer it in the summer, because we wouldn't be expending anything that we are able to think about decreasing. And so I would propose that we pay the tuition if it's in the summer, and they're responsible for their books and whatever else, but we'll cover tuition, because we're not responsible to cover anything.
Right.
And if they do it during the school year, the reason we'll pay the books and the tuition is because, in a sense, it's a student that's not in our classroom needing the instruction.
But that's
So
not always true, Julie, because they take these classes in the evenings.
Oh, okay.
And I believe it is statutory though, during the school year, we do have to cover that.
Yeah,
That's the key, like, we don't have a choice.
correct.
We have to, statutorily, there's nothing that would indicate we have to during the summer. I'm on both sides of this, but I do believe in obviously staying consistent with what we're supporting over the summer would make sense. Now, I didn't know about the fee piece in the other piece, so.
Just paying the tuition's a big difference maker for these kids.
Well,
Tuition
is
is $500 for the
is there any
nursing
reason
assistant.
we can't add the fee piece to this, then it's absolutely consistent. If we just say, we'll cover tuition as fees.
I think fees are gonna be more expensive than books.
Moving target.
But if we're talking though, I'm just saying it, I agree with you as a board that you say you need to be consistent. Well, that one says we cover the fees and the tuition during the summer.
I would argue we start with paying tuition. We can always change this policy to add more in the
Good.
future. Taking it away is not something that is positive. So
Yeah.
we are adding an extra benefit for this summer, and I would say, let's do one step at a time. We don't even know what we're gonna have available for us. And we're going into, so I would love to offer something and support these students, and I think us paying the tuition is what I would be comfortable.
As
moving
Rod said,
forward.
that's a game changer for several of the students, so yes.
And there are other ways, if they need, that they can get the whole thing paid for. They just have to commit to employment.
Mhm.
So it's not like there aren't other options based on if I'm able to contribute some or not able to contribute anything.
Is this so with the, go ahead.
It still gives them incentive to seek out, and that's a positive,
Correct.
Does this have to become policy tonight for some sort of timing?
Yeah, because the kids are waiting for approval so they can register. So Deb, could we have them approve it with the change that removing the reference to purchase the books and it would be tuition only?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would
So
just be an amendment.
we don't have to have a first and second reading?
We're asking you guys to, we're asking the board to do an immediate first reading. You can do it tonight.
Great.
Yeah, we just have to be very detailed with that.
Yes.
The board is
So pull it up and where's the reference to the books?
This is the one I see. I don't know if it's in more than one spot.
I think it's probably just in that one bullet point, unless it's also in the rule.
Deb, are you able to put a strike through right as we're making the motion on that?
No, we don't.
Those
either.
are PDFs.
I've never seen something Deb couldn't do before.
We're about to watch a marker go on
Would
this
you
marker.
surprise this?
We can go back through it and just strike book from.
Anything that says book.
Mhm.
And if the board were to propose approving the motion or the policy with tuition only, then we can go back and remove any reference to books with that motion, knowing that the district will cover tuition only. I think that would be sufficient for us to then go back and remove any of those references, just in case we miss something. So Deb, how would that look with knowing that the other ones would be just approving first reading, and this one would be waiving second reading and approval? Would that have to be separate, or could those all still be done in a single?
I don't need motions for H through Q, just to move them forward.
Okay,
And then this one, you just needs a motion separate.
got it.
But both the rule and the regular one can be in one motion.
So entertaining that motion.
So we can just make a single motion to accept the first reading
For the H through Q.
And approve.
Yes, I accept first reading and approve.
of H through Q. And I will make that motion.
No, we don't need that. You just
We don't
need,
need that, just for all.
H through Q just needs to move forward for
So
second.
we don't
Without a
have to
motion.
vote on
No
anything
motion.
for moving it forward. We agree to that, we're gonna move that forward.
So we need a special motion for our,
Yes. With that amendment to,
With the removal and book costs, and the next sentence, if the district is required to pay mid-state for the cost of the book or similar resource, it's a one-time and the student aid requirement. So that's what we're removing.
Right, any
That-
reference to.
yes,
That sentence and any other reference to books.
Take your motion.
Yes.
better repeat that for Deb. You got that? Teachers,
You got it.
Deb.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion is second. Any more conversation? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, those students will greatly appreciate this. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, item number 12, legislative update.
Yep, and you, so I forwarded the board an email from Mary Ann. And she went through and did the research, so I don't feel like we need to go through every component of this, so you have this in an email, but I'm just gonna cover some of the highlights that Mary Ann did. Her greetings, fellow Board of Education members. So the Assembly is adjourned for the year, passing several bills that are headed towards the governor's desk. The Senate's gonna be back on the floor later this month to consider the Assembly bills, which it passed and then head to the governor. She has some links and some details. Act 20 reading, the Joint Finance approved 4 more approved curricula for Act 20 today. So they're slowly but surely we're getting those. Remember when we said earlier, we're kind of waiting to see which curricula were approved. They had 4 more today, so there's a list, and we are actually exploring curricula off that list that meet those criteria so that we can make a decision on what we're going to use. And we're going to have our staff are going to be, we applied for a grant to do letters training, which is a component of this. We applied for a grant that would cover the costs of the letters training for staff up to $20,000. So we're hopeful that we'll be approved for that. Redistricting has been something that's been a hot topic, and actually, so we are now in the 29th Senate district, and our new senator is Corey Tomczyk, was previously a member of the Mosney School Board, and he has relations here in the Pittsville area. So he's in his second year of a 4-year term, and he would like to come for a visit in the upcoming months. So he's going to be our new. So Patrick Teston is no longer going to be our senator because of the redistricting. It will be Corey Tomczyk. In our new assembly district, we're going to be in the 86th district, and our representative through the end of 2024 is John Spiros from Marshfield. So those were the updates, and you have this in an email from Mary Ann. Those were the takeaways right now.
Is it effective?
In November, for the November, not for the April election, correct? I don't think the redistricting takes place until,
So
until,
Corey-
still have our current.
So Corey is not our current
yeah, so
senator.
I am,
Justin still is? or-
I need to check, but I am almost positive that they said the redistricting does not take place until after the April election. After April, in Florida,
I'm not sure.
right, is that your, I think that was my understanding of it.
Yeah, and that's when he wants to come to council after that.
After that, when he officially becomes our senator, I'll get verification, but I'm almost positive the redistricting does not take effect certainly until after this current election, the spring election. So it wouldn't be, so effectively, Patrick still would be, as of right now, would be our senator until, I don't know what the exact time is after the spring election, but I'll find out. She's got a link to the details on some of this stuff that's going to the governor. It's teacher certification, that program for initial license to teach that pass. That was one that's applicable to us. Failed to stop for a bus, increase the penalties. Those are some ones that these are now going to the assembly. I'm just thinking of ones that are like applicable to us right now in education. Apprenticeship awards, youth apprenticeship completion awards, career and tech education, incentive grants and completion awards. When we do receive those, a significant amount of those, and we're looking to increase that. Literacy training, that's related to the mandatory literacy training. That's that letters training that we signed our staff up for, that we applied for the grant on. Those are the education ones. Office of School Safety, I mentioned that appropriation that allows for the renewal of the Speak Up, Speak Up. So, and there's a link from Mary Ann on there if you want to explore those further. So that's the legislative update from Mary Ann.
It says the maps go into effect for the election in November.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So he's going to be our senator for a little bit longer.
Right, even if there was a special or a recall election, it wouldn't be eligible.
Until the
for that
November
until-
election, until the presidential election. Okay. It's amazing what we can find on Google.
It is, yeah,
All right.
it never fails you.
That is all I have for legislative updates from Mary Ann.
I only have one question.
Sure.
Anyone from the Pittsville School District going to the legislative breakfast at Mid-State for anyone?
I have not.
Just curious.
I did not have it on my calendar.
Okay. I'm going.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily going as a school board member, but if there was anything that, I mean, they asked to go around and they asked people to go around and introduce themselves and say
Yeah.
what they are. And when I've gone in the past, I've always gone under the context of my job, not under the context of being a board member, but I could say that I'm a Pittsville school board member if,
Well, I
You
could, I'm looking through my, information to see if I received information on this, and I may have. I get a lot of emails.
Yeah.
But it was not on my calendar, but I'm certainly,
it's from
I'm gonna do a little
7:30
research.
to 9 at Mid-State and the chamber puts it on.
Okay.
So, and it's
Could
good.
you forward me?
Yeah,
an email?
it's good. I've gone the last few years and typically there's, I haven't heard for sure who's all going to be there, but they typically give like a state of the state of what's
Okay.
going on. They ask questions and there's a number of school superintendents or other representatives there. There's a number of businesses there. There's a number, like it's a,
Yeah. I will, if you send me an email, you have me at breakfast, so, you piqued my interest when you said free breakfast. So I'll do a little
I
further
don't know if it's
research.
free. There might be a fee to go.
Could you send maybe that all of us?
Yep.
You have to sign up, so you
Thanks for
can't
the
just
reference.
show up.
No, I did a
But-
Google, mail search, and I didn't see anything in there, so.
Sure, so, you have to, I mean, not that you can't sign up still, but you have to, you can't just show up. You have to sign up.
Okay,
Well, maybe you could just show up.
hold on. No,
It's under Heart of Wisconsin, and it's the 2024 Spring Legislative Breakfast at Mid-State. Oh, it's at 7 a.m., 7 to 9 a.m., not 7:30.
yeah, please
On
please
Friday.
forward that to me, because I feel a bit like a wedding crasher
And-
here or something, because I didn't get invited, but.
Yeah, and Tammy Baldwin's invited, Ron Johnson, Derek Van Orden, Joan Baldwin, Kat Teston's confirmed that he'll be there.
Okay,
Alan Dahlman, Scott Krug, Katrina Shanklin, Nancy Vandermeer, Donna Rosar, Governor Evers, and then other local.
no, please send that to me, I will, if I'm able to attend, and I would assume if other superintendents are attending that.
So if I send it, Deb, to you, would you send it out to all the board members so that thanks.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Yeah. It's a good event, and you actually get to like, if you want to, you can actually talk, like, I mean, it's interactive and you can go
Yep.
have a conversation with them. And, so it's enough people, but not so many that you can't interact.
Yep, I like it.
And I will be there. So if no one else comes and you want me to say that I'm also a school board member, I certainly can.
Okay,
Okay, item 13, public comments, cover the name. No?
Cindy, any public comments?
Yes.
Item 14, future agenda items.
So I believe we have, I know the board gave several topics that they wanted to cover. I know we had food service, the budget, those types of things. So I don't know if there's any other kind of others that you would like, you know, as we've done like the school safety and stuff, I think those have been pretty, I would assume pretty well received by the board is doing those kind of overviews. If there's anything else, please feel free to share and we will put it on and bring forward the information.
I would be, this is me personally, so if no one else is interested,
Yeah.
I would just, talk to Pam a little more, but I'm interested in 180.
180.
Yeah, and like how that all
Okay.
actually works.
Anybody else?
What else could be on it?
We'll make it happen. If you think of anything else, send an email.
If you have specific questions, Nate, feel free to email them to
Okay.
me, so make sure I cover what you want to know.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
there's a lot, so
Yeah, I know.
to narrow it down a little bit would be.
And then just the topic that I shared.
Yep.
Um,
We'll have to figure out what to put that under, but yeah, let's kind of work, you know what I mean, what to title
just
it.
to revisit our search policy.
Well, here's what
to assure that, just to assure that it matches the intent.
So here's what I
and
feel,
that-
Julie.
Yeah.
If, with us bringing those proposed policies forward, that would be the avenue to have that. You know what I mean? Like when we have the first reading, that we can actually have the discussion.
Yeah.
With those first readings. Would that work? Like to do it, like when we bring the
Yeah.
same policies from WASB?
Sure, so the idea
About
would
search.
be a whole separate policy, not modifying.
No,
our
it would be a
current,
separate-
Okay.
That's pulling separate policies for the board to review, and then I think that would lead right into having that discussion.
Fantastic,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. And I would anticipate we would have that by next month, we'd be bringing
That's
that
fine.
forward.
I'm not,
No,
I'm
it
not
just,
in a hurry, I just think that it would be great to have a little bit more clarity.
Yep.
We
can do that. Okay.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion to adjourn.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Signatures.